Chapter 10:10. Poplar Fruit and Fong Bei had completely reconciled. In other words, it was as if the young couple had a big fight and then continued to stick together like glue after waking up the next day. Zhang Yujia was the only frustrated one, but she didn't despair. Instead, Poplar Fruit's toughness aroused her competitiveness. She was really not convinced. Why did Poplar Fruit always abandon her when making choices? She didn't believe that with her persistence, there would be a day when Poplar Fruit would be moved. However, that night, there was still a small tale that Poplar Fruit needed to continue to worry about. That night, the reason why Poplar Fruit returned home at 1 o'clock was not because he was asked to stay by Zhang Yujia. In fact, he politely rejected her at 11 o'clock and came out of Zhang Yujia's house. However, downstairs of Zhang Yujia's house, Poplar Fruit met Zhang Mingsheng, who was smoking and waiting for him downstairs. If others saw it, they would definitely not believe that the middle-aged man standing next to his car under the light was the first leader of Guangdong Province, the feudal official of Nanwei. However, he was indeed standing there, and he was waiting for Poplar Fruit to come down. Not to mention other things. Just the fact that Zhang Mingsheng was Zhang Yujia's father made Poplar Fruit break out in a cold sweat. Fortunately, he didn't have any bad thoughts. Otherwise, if he did bad things upstairs, and then the girl's father was waiting downstairs, it would really be a big deal. However, even if Poplar Fruit didn't do anything bad, when he saw Zhang Mingsheng upstairs and noticed his meaningful eyes, Poplar Fruit was so embarrassed that he wanted to find a hole on the ground to hide in. Zhang Mingsheng had finished his work today, so he dropped by to visit his daughter. Their relationship seemed to have drifted apart because he was too busy. She didn't expect to see Poplar Fruit rushing up the stairs when she arrived. Even Zhang Mingsheng didn't have time to stop Poplar Fruit. He hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he didn't go up. He was worried that he might see something he didn't want to see. Thus, he had been waiting here all along. For a busy Guangdong Province's leader, this golden rest time was wasted just like that while waiting. "Uncle, I'm here to talk to Yuji about something," Poplar Fruit hurriedly explained. Zhang Mingsheng did not question him, but Poplar Fruit could see a trace of doubt in his eyes. However, Zhang Mingsheng didn't want to be entangled in this issue. He just looked at Poplar Fruit meaningfully and said, "You have a child and a girlfriend. Pay attention to your image." Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He could only nod and agree. Zhang Mingsheng waited for him. Naturally, it wasn't just for these trivial matters of young people's love affairs. Originally, he also had the intention to see Poplar Fruit again. Since they happened to meet, he could bring it up. "Previously, the matter between my daughter and Li Zichao implicated you. Please bear with it." Zhang Mingsheng smiled and said. When Zhang Yujia asked Zhang Mingsheng for help, she confessed to him about her grievances with Li Zichao. She didn't hide the fact that Poplar Fruit was just acting with her. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said embarrassedly, "It's okay. When I helped Yuji in the past, I also thought about it. This time it's all thanks to Uncle Zhang that such a big thing happened. Be careful in the future. Solve things slowly. Remember not to be impulsive." Zhang Mingsheng waved his hand. He didn't care too much. "What's your relationship with He Wenjua?" Zhang Mingsheng finally brought up the main topic. Poplar Fruit said honestly, "He and I are good brothers. We've been through life and death together." He didn't need to hide it. If Zhang Mingsheng wanted to investigate, with his status, what couldn't he find out? Zhang Mingsheng looked at Poplar Fruit with surprise. Although he knew that Poplar Fruit and He Wenjua had a good relationship, he didn't know that it was so good. He family's child is not bad. He's good at both the pen and the sword. In the future, he could be like his father and achieve great things. Zhang Mingsheng nodded slightly and praised. Poplar Fruit didn't have much political wisdom, but he could still vaguely feel that Zhang Mingsheng had other intentions. Finally, Zhang Mingsheng laughed and said, "Commander, he is usually in the army, so we don't have much interaction. Only now did I know that he raised such an excellent son. Like father, like son. Big brother, he is really good." Poplar Fruit nodded honestly. Zhang Mingsheng smiled and said, "In the army, the biggest problem is the arrangement of the retired soldiers. especially the special forces. These soldiers have risked their lives for the country, but it's hard for them to find a suitable job after they retire. Poplar Fruit also nodded and said, yes, there were a few big brothers in the special forces who retired, but the arrangement was for them to go back to their hometown's public security bureau. It's fine if they're not married, but there's a big brother whose wife is settled down in Guangdong province, so it's very troublesome for them to go back home to work. Poplar Fruit was just talking about the facts. He didn't know much about Zheng Mingxing's twists and turns, but he accidentally bumped into Zheng Mingxing's topic. Zheng Mingxing laughed and said, it's okay. Next time, if you meet Big Brother tell him that he can come to me if he's in trouble. After all, I'm the provincial party secretary of Guangdong province. I can't let our heroes bleed and cry. After chatting for a long time, Zheng Mingxing let Poplar Fruit go back. It was precisely for this reason that Poplar Fruit returned home very late. At that time, he was wholeheartedly concerned about Fongbei Bay, so Poplar Fruit didn't feel anything. Later, when he remembered this matter, Poplar Fruit finally understood. Zheng Mingxing talked about He family all night, but he didn't care about He Wenjue. He was eyeing He Wenjue's father, He Jioming. Zheng Mingxing was still an outsider in Guangdong province. Although he had the help of an old subordinate of the deputy provincial level, and he had also roped in a few members of the standing committee in the past 6 months, he hadn't fully grasped the right to speak in the two groups. If he could have the support of He Jioming, he could immediately reverse the situation. After reading so many novels and listening to so many people's bragging, Poplar Fruit still had some understanding. So his guess was not far from the truth. Although Poplar Fruit didn't have much interaction with Zheng Mingxing was Zheng Yujie's father after all. Out of guilt for Zheng Yujie, he hesitated for a while and decided to help. Of course, Poplar Fruit only played the role of a bridge. Poplar Fruit called Big Brother and honestly explained the relationship, and then conveyed Zheng Mingxing's kindness to He Wenjue. He wanted to apologize to He Wenjue with guilt, but he didn't expect that He Wenjue didn't blame him at all. Haha, I understand. In fact, my father also has the idea of making friends with Secretary Zheng. Thank you, Poplar Fruit, He Wenjue said with a smile. Poplar Fruit didn't expect that a small character like him really played a small but important role in the game of gods in Guangdong province. This might be a good thing, but it had nothing to do with Poplar Fruit. He Wenjue and Poplar Fruit wouldn't get involved, especially Poplar Fruit. He would live in his simple ivory tower. Chapter 10-11. At the end of the semester, Higashiyama University began to get busy. The students, who were usually sloppy, walked faster and occupied the library, study rooms, and other precious places to study for the final exams. Although Poplar Fruit did not need to study for the exams, he was facing the biggest test since he started the remote teaching. The 6th grade children of Xiong Family Village were about to take the elementary school entrance examination. The elementary school entrance examination was really important to Poplar Fruit. Although others said that the best results could not be seen in 1 or 2 years, Poplar Fruit still hoped that this batch of children would be able to get good results. Even if they could not prove that it was due to their remote teaching, it was still a good start for these children's future. The year had just started, and the older children of other villages had not started to face this because their foundation was too far apart. They did not even have a good teacher like Teacher Ming to teach them. So Poplar Fruit wanted them to study for another year or two before taking the elementary school entrance examination. However, before that, the 2 public elective courses that Poplar Fruit was in charge of this semester had to end first. Poplar Fruit felt that he was an unqualified teacher because he had repeatedly changed the class schedule for several weeks throughout the semester due to work and personal matters. At the beginning of the semester, Poplar Fruit had emphasized the importance of attending class, but he himself had not done so. Fortunately, the students were quite cooperative and did not complain much. Moreover, they worked very hard in their studies. Although most of the students' learning results were not ideal due to their lack of talent, their learning attitude moved Poplar Fruit. Therefore, Poplar Fruit gave these students who studied very hard a very high average score. Although their final results were not good, they still got a score of more than 80 points. They did not work hard for nothing. Of course, what made Poplar Fruit even more satisfied was that there were nearly 20 students in these two classes who performed very well. Most of the students in the translation class came to study translation out of interest. They might be able to translate some theses and resumes themselves after this semester's classes, or help their superiors translate short articles, but they would not be able to reach the level that Poplar Fruit recognized. However, there were 5 or 6 students who had more potential. There were even 2 students who had a foundation in English and were very close to being able to translate long web novels. What they lacked was experience in translation and the accumulation of a huge amount of vocabulary. Poplar Fruit had interacted with these students before. Indeed, these students were very interested in translation, or rather, the profession of translation, so Poplar Fruit was willing to help them. Next semester, there would be another public course for translation, but the level of the course would be relatively simple. Under Yang Guo's suggestion, these students would continue to practice through the translation platform of Cinda Translation. In the future, when the training classes of Cinda Translation and New Translation Road Company were held again, they would also be the focus of selection. There were 10 students in the basic Swedish class, and they were already able to carry out some simple daily conversations. Don't look down on such a small improvement. Think about the difficulties they faced learning English from scratch. They had only attended more than 10 classes. Other than Poplar Fruit's professors, they had also started a lot of practice on their own. Poplar Fruit had talked to them before. They really wanted to learn a new language from the bottom of their hearts, and they were willing to put in effort and persevere. Next semester, which was the beginning of the next school year, Poplar Fruit would not be offering a public course for Swedish. This was because after a semester, an unfamiliar language was too challenging for non-language majors. Chun Zongdai also had a detailed plan for Poplar Fruit's work. This semester, Poplar Fruit's Swedish class would be offered within the school. It would exist in the form of a specialized class, and it would only be open to language majors. Compared to the public course, the specialized class would not only double the class duration, but the difficulty and rhythm of the class would also be much higher than the public course. Even Poplar Fruit could not guarantee that the students who chose his specialized class would be able to achieve their goals. Therefore, his burden would be much heavier next semester. Among the 10 students, 2 of them were from other schools, and one of them was even a science and engineering student. This meant that they could not choose this course from the course selection system. Moreover, even if the school opened a side course and allowed them to choose the course, their grades and credits in this course would be of no use to them, unless they double majored in another school. Unfortunately, Higashiyama University did not have a Swedish major. Maybe there would be one in the future, but not now. After communicating with the 2 students, Poplar Fruit was surprised to receive a reply that made him feel touched. They were willing to listen in and continue learning Swedish. This was a bit like the peasant brothers in ancient times who had to follow the rebels even if they were not paid. However, it was not that exaggerated. If there was a chance in the future, Poplar Fruit would definitely do what his teacher, Chun Zongdai, said, do better and stand in a higher position, like a professor like Chun Zongdai, who was the leader of the school. This way, he would have more power to speak and let more students who liked to study languages get the treatment they deserved. If Poplar Fruit's teaching performance this semester made Chun Zongdai satisfied, then Poplar Fruit's academic achievements were enough for Chun Zongdai to brag about for a long time. Because of the Duan Shueching and Beibei matters, Poplar Fruit wasted a lot of time in self-torture and did not have time to do research. However, before and after that, Poplar Fruit had quite a lot of achievements. The first one, or rather, the one that was made public, was Poplar Fruit's translation theory. In the research team, led by him and Professor Luo Lin, there were the best graduate students from Higashiyama University and Beijing International Studies University. The research had been going smoothly, so much so that even when Poplar Fruit was not there, the students used his ideas and examples to demonstrate. After a lot of case studies, they finally formed a mature report before the end of the semester. This thick report would also be edited and published by the publishing house of Beijing International Studies University. Even if it would never be a bestseller, it would play a disruptive and foundational role in the field of linguistics and translation. However, what everyone did not know was that what really made Chun Zongdai smile from ear to ear was not the fact that the entire research team had completed a well-developed translation theory, but Yanggua's own private research on the word splitting method in teaching Chinese as a foreign language. Of course, Poplar Fruit had not developed any specific results yet. He was too busy. However, Chun Zongdai was happy to see that the word splitting method had been proven on a large scale. In time, Poplar Fruit would be able to completely develop the word splitting method and then completely change the most basic structure of Chinese teaching. How wonderful would it be if the whole world learned Chinese? This chapter is a summary. First, I will explain Xiao Duan's arrangement. I know that many readers have a soft spot for Xiao Duan and want Xiao Duan to have a good ending. Pai Dinwan was unanimously expressed that they did not like him, to the point of being disgusted. In fact, this character was both good and evil, but no one liked him. Xiao Han had thought for a long time and arranged for him to have an ending that everyone could see. As for Xiao Duan, she was like a snow lotus living on Mount Tianshan. Her aloofness doomed her to be unable to walk together with Poplar Fruit. Why did everyone have to force it? Xiao Han's design of a character like Poplar Fruit did not give everyone a strong sense of immersion. Poplar Fruit was a person with his own unique personality and opinions. It was impossible to satisfy everyone, since it could not satisfy everyone. Xiao Han thought of the beginning for Xiao Duan to bid farewell to the past. Although it was called an ending, it was just the end of Xiao Duan's feelings in this book. She would still appear in the book in the future, but it would also be the beginning of everyone's imagination. You can imagine as much as you want. Jing Nan Nan will be the embodiment of your imagination. He could be a domineering CEO who hides his identity, or a well-rounded expert who hides his abilities, or even a rookie who starts from scratch and works hard to make progress. In the end, he can melt the iceberg and let Xiao Duan let go of the past, finally reaping the most beautiful happiness. Xiao Duan will have a better life. Xiao Han wishes everyone, and also wishes Xiao Duan. Alright, there's also Zheng Yujia. Queen Zheng's plot is not as simple as Xiao Duan's. Really, she will also be very happy, Xiao Han promises. Chapter 10-12. Because most of the students needed to revise at the end of the semester, they were able to contribute. Yanghua, on the other hand, had the most free time in the last 2 weeks. He took up the responsibility of teaching from afar and split himself into several people. It was also very tiring. Fortunately, the hard days didn't last long. The end of the semester passed in the blink of an eye, and the remote teaching came to an end. Except for some children who were still eagerly waiting for the results of the primary school exams, and Poplar Fruit and the other teachers, the children had already started their summer vacation. In the next 2 months, they could choose to do some farm work with their families, or they could choose to go back to school and study by themselves with the system. Poplar Fruit and the others would plan a holiday activity in half a month. They would bring volunteer teacher representatives from various schools to the Meng Stockade, hidden in the towering mountains of Guishan province, to communicate with their students face to face. But before that, they had to welcome the carnival after the end of the semester. Although the final exam had nothing to do with Poplar Fruit was still a young man after all. He had also experienced the painful final exam in university. Under the instigation of Fong Beibei's roommates, Lu Lei and Lu Ruhua, he also nodded. Rather than a carnival party, Poplar Fruit felt that it was more like a fellowship party between young people. Fong Beibei had revealed to Poplar Fruit that Lu Lei and Lu Ruhua would bring a few of their close friends over. They are all beauties. Fong Beibei smiled and winked at Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, "What are you afraid of?" I also called a lot of boys like my roommates and Wang Yuba's roommates to let them communicate. This was interesting because Fong Beibei's circle was more female than male, while Poplar Fruit's circle was the opposite. They had brought out the most precious resources in their respective circles. The remaining leftover men and leftover women were probably going to cry. In order to prepare for this party, Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei started preparing early in the morning. Early in the morning, the family drove to the market and bought half a cart of barbecue chicken wings, beef, and so on. Kiki was very sensible and helped her father carry a small bag of delicious and beautiful cherries. Of course, the little guy secretly ate as he carried it. Poplar Fruit had long known about Kiki's intention. When he bought it, he had already washed the small bag of cherries. He and Fong Bei were very naughty. The two of them secretly laughed at the side and did not expose Kiki. Instead, they took out their mobile phones and secretly took photos of Kiki's crime evidence. Poplar Fruit's balcony was very big, and because it was a high-rise building, a smokeless electric barbecue grill could be used to barbecue. After a busy day, Poplar Fruit finally welcomed the first group of guests. Poplar Fruit ran downstairs to pick them up. Lu Lei and Lu Ruhua were followed by 4 tall girls, all of whom were Lu Ruhua's fellow villagers in the northeast and also students of Higashiyama University. Great! After entering the door, Lu Ruhua and Lu Lei could not help but sigh. They took Fong Bei's hand and called out enviously. They were not reserved with Poplar Fruit. Just now, they were calling brother-in-law, brother-in-law. However, in the end, it was easier for girls to communicate with other girls. As soon as they met, they began to chatter. When we entered your neighborhood just now, we knew. It's definitely a luxurious and rich area. Now that we look at it, we found that we underestimated it. Your place is so big, so big. Even the foyer is dozens of square meters. Lu Lei called out with sparkling eyes. At this point, Lu Lei and the others' impression of Poplar Fruit had almost a 180-degree change. From the previous worry and suspicion to the current admiration and even admiration. In the praise just now, they did not hide their envy of Fong Bei. How many beautiful girls dreamed of marrying into a rich family? In order to enjoy a luxurious life, they did not care if they married a chicken or a dog. They would rather sit in a BMW and cry than smile while sitting on a bicycle. Although Lu Ruhua and the others did not have such thoughts, Fong Bei's love really made them envious. Her boyfriend's character was not only good, but he was also famous in the country for being handsome. His talent was recognized by all the teachers and students in the school, and he was young and rich. This was what they saw with their own eyes. So what if they had children? Kiki was so obedient and cute, and everyone loved her. She even captured many sister fans and mother fans on the internet. They heard that recently, they had already started calling Fong Bei mother. Fong Bei was definitely going to be a stepmother. Thinking back to when they first met Poplar Fruit, Fong Bei and Poplar Fruit had just met. He was still a big boy who rented a small rental house. He carried his daughter and had to beg them to help take care of her during exams. At that time, no one was optimistic about Poplar Fruit and Fong Bei. Didn't Wu Yanni strongly oppose them at that time? Even Lin Xingshan, who supported Poplar Fruit, was blind. She still had a lot of worries in her heart. However, now it seemed that Fong Bei's choice was the best. They were living a happy and luxurious life. What about Wu Yanni? She was now living outside, but she had changed boyfriends several times. She still hadn't settled on a relationship. He couldn't even compare to Lin Xingshan. Although her current boyfriend wasn't as good as Poplar Fruit, he was still considered a potential stock. Speak of the devil. Poplar Fruit answered the phone and said to them with a smile, "Bow bow, show everyone around first. I'll go down to pick them up. Shan Shan and Yuba are here. Go go. It's more convenient for us girls to be together here." Lu Ruhua said heartily and pushed Poplar Fruit out. "Sister Hua, Kiki has washed the cherries. Please eat them." Not long after Poplar Fruit went out, Kiki pushed a small cart out. Previously, Poplar Fruit asked his daughter to wash the cherries in the dining room. She took a basin of water, washed one, and put it into a basket. The main purpose was to cultivate Kiki's hands-on ability and the awareness of helping her parents do housework. However, Kiki was smart enough to take out the stroller that she no longer used and put the basket on it. After washing it, she could push the cart out. Otherwise, Kiki wouldn't be able to move a big basket of cherries after washing them. Wow, Kiki is so amazing. So many cherries. Did you wash them all? Lu Lei held Kiki's hand and said in surprise and admiration. Kiki washed them. The little guy was very happy. She didn't forget to take credit. This cherry, Kiki washed them one by one. It's so tiring. Kiki is so obedient. Lule gave a thumbs up and smiled. She also handed Kiki a cherry. Kiki, try it. Isn't it very sweet after washing it yourself? Fong Bei covered her mouth and laughed. Don't give it to her. She ate too many cherries today. When she was washing them just now, I saw Kiki secretly eating them. Kiki's face was red. She waved her hand and said, Kiki didn't secretly eat them. She ate them openly. Goldie also saw it. Goldie, who was wallowing in the mire, shook its tail and barked twice. Chapter 10:13. Poplar Fruit made 2 more trips, and the guests gradually arrived. In addition to Poplar Fruit's roommates, Ding Wenjiang, Hu Junjie, and Song Qing, Wang Yuba was also very helpful. He brought a few handsome men and beautiful women from the remote teaching program. Most of the people who came were Poplar Fruit and Fong Bei, so they could blend in immediately. However, Lu Ruhua's fellow countrymen were a little reserved because they were unfamiliar with them. However, after a few mouthfuls of beer, their northeastern forthrightness was shown, and they could chat freely. The night came, and the evening wind was blowing on the balcony. In addition to Poplar Fruit, who was busy grilling chicken wings, grilled meatballs, mushrooms wrapped in tin foil, and eggplant for the guests, there were also men and women who came in 2s and 3s to enjoy the night view from time to time. Brother Yang's barbecue is the best. Every time Lin Xingshan sent the barbecue delicacies into the house, everyone was full of praise. Really, it wasn't that everyone was negligent and let Poplar Fruit be busy alone. The girls also tried to take over Poplar Fruit's work, but everyone felt that the barbecue of others wasn't as good as Poplar Fruit's barbecue. The cooking skills of a chef weren't just for show. Poplar Fruit's barbecue chicken wings had crispy skin and tender meat. A bite of the meat overflowed with fragrance. It was too different from the barbecued chicken wings that they barbecued, so in the end, they could only do more work. Poplar Fruit stayed outside and continued to barbecue. Of course, the others weren't just playing. Like the girls, they also took turns to help wash the fruit. The boys helped to pass soda and beer. They were very diligent and wanted to show off in front of the girls. Fong Bei was pushed out by Lin Xingshan and the others. They took over the busy work. Originally, they wanted to let Fong Bei take a break, but Fong Bei felt sorry for Poplar Fruit. She came out a fan and wiped the sweat of Poplar Fruit. Baby, try this. Poplar Fruit enjoyed his girlfriend's thoughtfulness. He specially roasted a large piece of beef, cut it with a pair of scissors, and then put it in front of her. I didn't put any seasoning. The original taste is the best. Slow down, it's a little hot. Poplar Fruit advised with a smile. It smells so good. Fong Bei used her teeth to gently bite the cut of beef that Yang Gua had cut. With a roll of her tongue, she began to eat. Smacking her lips, she was very satisfied with eating. She even gave a thumbs up and said, "It tastes even better." Looking at Fong Bei's smiling face, Poplar Fruit couldn't be more proud. Being praised by the person you love the most gives you a sense of accomplishment. Aya, you guys are secretly eating here. Lin Xingshan and Wang Yuba ran out at some point, and she exposed them with a smile. Wang Yuba also took a photo of Poplar Fruit and Fong Bei with his mobile phone. He said with a smile, "No one is outside, so you guys are secretly showing off your love. Look, how good are you in the photo?" Poplar Fruit's hand was dirty, so Fong Bei took it. She held it and looked at it with Poplar Fruit. It was indeed very artistic. In the photo, Poplar Fruit was giving Fong Bei beef. Fong Bei ate until her mouth was full, but her eyes were looking at Poplar Fruit, full of love. Fong Bei said with a smile, "It's a good photo. I won't blame you for violating our portrait rights. Senior brother, remember to send the photo to me later. Come, you guys have a taste too." Poplar Fruit also roasted a piece of beef for them. He cut it into a few pieces with scissors, pulled it onto a plate, and handed it to Wang Yuba. Wang Yuba laughed. He took out a pair of chopsticks, looked at Lin Xingshan, and said, "Shan, I'll give it to you too." "No." Lin Xingshan blushed and waved her hands. She was shy. You guys go to the side. We won't look at you. Fong Beibei knew her roommate's character, so she covered her mouth and laughed. Under Wang Yubao's insistence, Lin Xingshan blushed and walked to the side. The two of them secretly played the little tricks between couples. The moonlight was good, and there were scattered stars. It was suitable for romance, wasn't it? In order not to make Lin Xingshan nervous, Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei did not disturb them. Fong Beibei put on a pair of gloves and helped Poplar Fruit skewer chicken wings. Inside the house, Chi-Chi was yelling and playing very enthusiastically with this group of big brothers and sisters, just like a little master of the house. Here's a dance blanket. Kiki asked the big brother to turn on the big screen TV. Then, she grabbed the remote control and skillfully pressed the dance game that she often played. Of course, this dance blanket was not bought by Poplar Fruit. How could Poplar Fruit have this talent? Fong Beibei liked dancing and wanted to lose weight through dancing. Fong Beibei complained that she was being fed by Poplar Fruit's delicious food every day. Naturally, she had the motive to buy a dance blanket. The first dance song was Nobody from South Korea. Although some of the South Koreans were disgusting, some of their entertainment content was not bad. For example, this dance song that became popular in Asia a few years ago was still very exciting to listen to. However, everyone's interest was piqued by Kiki's dance moves, especially when the little girl clapped her hands together with the beautiful girls on the TV. She raised her legs, shook her butt, and waved her little finger. This action ignited the whole room. Although Kiki's dance was not perfect, her movements were on point, and she kept up with the rhythm. The big brothers and sisters laughed and clapped for Kiki. A few girls even screamed excitedly. This excited atmosphere made one's scalp tingle. However, Kiki was unmoved. She continued to perform her dance seriously amidst the cheers and discussions. Everyone, lower your voices. Listen. A girl with sharp ears called out. The noise was a little softer. Those who were closer could hear clearly that Kiki was singing along. Although the rhythm was a little lacking, Kiki actually danced and sang at the same time. Her pronunciation was clear, and it was no different from the ones on TV. Another one. One more time. After the song was over, the audience cheered. Kiki was also having a lot of fun. She thought for a while and said while panting slightly, "Then, let's do the most dazzling ethnic style." What made everyone's jaws drop and laugh out loud was that Chi-Chi really followed the TV and did a square dance. At this time, Fong Beibei, who had followed them in, explained to everyone that Kiki learned this from Grandma Lu Suchin's group. This kind of simple and lively melody was not only popular among the elderly, but also among the children. After that, it became even more lively. Fong Beibei performed. Poplar Fruit clumsily performed on stage, and everyone happily danced the world-famous horse-riding dance, Jiangnan style. Of course, Poplar Fruit had a super luxurious sound system, so everyone wanted to experience the singing experience that was comparable to a karaoke room. They ate, drank, and had fun. Everyone played for a long time. Until 10 o'clock, Kiki was really sleepy and fell into a deep sleep. In order not to disturb Kiki, the guests left one after another. It was not considered a graduation separation, but the end of the semester was over. Tomorrow, many people would go their separate ways. The party this time was just for a better reunion next semester. In the future, everyone will work hard together. Chapter 10:14. Originally, Yanghua had always thought that Fat Dragon's group of amazing hackers from all over the world had gathered together to start company. In fact, it was just a joke, an organization where everyone could chat and drink tea when they were free. But today, when Fat Dragon came to Yangcheng in frustration, Poplar Fruit realized that they were actually doing something. Flappy Bird was developed by Ruandonga from Southview without a word. We actually arranged for it to be released on Apple's store last month, but the results were terrible. Fat Dragon said honestly, "Ruandonga? I remember you saying that he liked to design games in school, and even won awards. Where's Flappy Bird? Can you help me install it?" Poplar Fruit asked with interest. "You need to spend money to download it. You should use my phone to play. There's a developer version for this," Fat Dragon said. "No problem, it's not much." Yangwa found it and clicked on the purchase button as she smiled and said, "This is my support for you. I don't need your support." Fat Dragon rolled his eyes. "I just want to see if you have a way to make it popular." Poplar Fruit understood what he meant. After Poplar Fruit got Blizzard to promote 3 Tiger Shing's I Am MT, it became the most popular mobile game in the world after it was released last year. It even made Lu Dongjue one of the most famous mobile game developers in the country. And the upcoming Mercenary World, which was in beta testing this year, was already very popular in the country before it was even released. With Blizzard's promotion in the future, it would definitely achieve great results as well. Lu Dongjue was now a rising star comparable to 9 Nether, and its market value had skyrocketed to $1 billion. Think about it. At the beginning of last year, they were still relying on layoffs to survive. Of course, Poplar Fruit didn't know the details. He didn't care at all. He only knew that Fat Dragon wanted to use this opportunity to promote Ruan Donga's game. "I'll play first." Poplar Fruit didn't agree so quickly. He picked up his phone and started to play the game. Kiki curiously poked her head over and squeezed in her father's arms to watch. She's grown up a lot now. She's not fat, but she's a little like her father. She's a little taller. She's only 2 years old, but she's already as tall as my daughter, who's 4 or 5 years old. She squeezed into Poplar Fruit's arms. Poplar Fruit could only hug Kiki and use one hand to control the phone. You want to adjust the bird's flying height and landing speed by tapping on the screen. Fat Dragon explained. "Why is the image so bad?" Poplar Fruit asked in confusion. "Ugly little bird." Kiki chuckled and mercilessly commented. It was indeed too bad. It looked like the handheld game that Poplar Fruit played when he was young. It even looked like Super Mario. Looking at the green water pipe, Poplar Fruit felt that the man-eating flower in the Mario game would pop out. Fat Dragon scratched his head awkwardly and said, "This game was originally designed like this. It's a little retro and uses pixel graphics. However, I can guarantee that although the design is very simple, it's definitely not crude. It looks like you can still see our intentions." The design was simple. To put it bluntly, it was because they didn't have enough manpower. They couldn't package it as beautifully as those big-name game manufacturers. However, the game didn't necessarily succeed just because it looked good. At the end of the day, playing a game was still reflected in the word play. If it was simple and easy to play, wouldn't it be in line with the characteristics of a mobile game? However, Poplar Fruit obviously underestimated Fat Dragon and the others. The first time they played, Poplar Fruit directly made the little bird hit the water pipe, and the result was 0. The second time, Poplar Fruit made the little bird fly through the first water pipe gap with great difficulty. However, he didn't control it well, and it flew too high and hit the second water pipe. It's over just like that? Not even 2 seconds. Poplar Fruit looked at Fat Dragon in a daze and asked, "Only one life?" Fat Dragon corrected, "Not only one life. This game has countless lives. If you die, you can play again." Poplar Fruit rolled his eyes and said, "Isn't that just one life?" While Poplar Fruit and Fat Dragon were talking, Kiki snatched her father's phone and put it on the sofa. She was very interested in playing the game. After thinking for a while, Poplar Fruit asked, "Fat Dragon, why do I feel like this game is very familiar?" I'm dead." Kiki suddenly cried out regretfully. She turned around, pulled Fat Dragon's hand, and asked, "Uncle Fat Dragon, why do we start again? Just press this." Fat Dragon said as he pointed. Taking advantage of this time, Poplar Fruit sorted out his thoughts and asked, "Isn't it a bit like that cave helicopter? The classic game on our previous feature phone could keep flying by pressing 5. It's a bit like that." Fat Dragon nodded honestly. There's also that game that goes up to the 100th floor, the kind that plays endlessly. Poplar Fruit patted his thigh and said, It's different. Fat Dragon thought that Poplar Fruit was saying that they plagiarized. So he quickly said, "It looks like it, but in fact the gameplay is completely different. The gap in this water pipe is very small. If you're not careful, you'll hit the water pipe." Fat Dragon said, I hit it again." Kiki called out very appropriately. She turned her head angrily and shouted at Fat Dragon Uncle, "Uncle, don't curse Kiki. Let's talk over there." Poplar Fruit smiled and pulled Fat Dragon to the dining room, where there was a small bar. Of course, there was no wine at home, so Poplar Fruit handed Fat Dragon a bottle of ice soda. I like this kind of sour feeling. Fat Dragon laughed and drank half of the bottle. Our gameplay is more inclined towards self-abuse. Fat Dragon said a little embarrassedly. It's just that the game will be very difficult to play, but you still feel that you shouldn't get so few points. That's true. I also feel that I shouldn't only get 1 point. Poplar Fruit laughed. Papa. On the other side of the sofa, Kiki, who had been playing for a while, suddenly jumped up excitedly. She grabbed the phone with her small hand and shook it vigorously at her father, shouting, "Kiki got 2 points. Better than Papa." Look at how happy she was, as if she had conquered the whole world. Poplar Fruit gave Kiki a thumbs up, turned his head, and said unconvinced, If you let me play a few more times, I'll definitely get more than 1 point." That's right, we also feel that a simple game with a higher difficulty has a strong, intoxicating effect. You can't help but want to continue playing. Fat Dragon laughed. But it's a pity. Fat Dragon shook his head in frustration and said, "It's been on the shelf for more than a month, and the results are too dismal. It's much worse than what we expected." Chapter 10:15. Is it because you're charging for it? Poplar Fruit guessed. It's normal. People don't want to buy things that cost money. Moreover, your game isn't a big production. Isn't it a little too expensive to charge $1? Fat Dragon asked. Not charging for it? If we don't earn money, what are we going to eat? Poplar Fruit rolled his eyes and said, "You're an internet player, don't you know this? As long as there are a lot of people downloading it, can't you sell advertisements?" Wasn't Poplar Fruit's other company, Wanhatiani, the same? Although Poplar Fruit didn't care much about the company's operations, their whole family was loyal fans of Unexpectedly. There was once when Kiki didn't understand the plot, so she pestered her father to call Baldy call Uncle Beast. Unexpectedly was free to watch, but not only the company, but also the video websites that they worked with made a lot of money. The source of these profits was all advertising revenue. Of course, only Unexpectedly and a few other funny web dramas from Wanhatiani were able to make a lot of money under this model. After all, they were at the forefront of the video website's views and even set records. The other small videos only had tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of views, and they were only at the level of small noises. Fat Dragon had the same worry, so he asked, "But what if the views don't increase? If no one downloaded the game after it was free, they would definitely not make any money. One had to know that without enough clicks, who would advertise for them? Have some confidence in yourself. Have some determination to cut off all means of retreat." Poplar Fruit encouraged him. "Although I don't have a business mind, I still have some understanding of the current market. If your game isn't a big production, it will be very difficult for people to spend money to buy it. But if it's free, there might be good results." Fat Dragon was still hesitating. At this time, the door opened, and Fong Bei came in with 2 bags of things. She went home yesterday, and Poplar Fruit sent her back, but today Poplar Fruit was busy with Fat Dragon, and Fong Bei didn't let him pick her up. "Brother Long, you're here?" Fong Bei looked over and greeted him shyly. "I told you to call me Fat Dragon, like Poplar Fruit." Fat Dragon laughed. "We're a family. Why are you so formal?" Poplar Fruit walked up and helped Fong Bei. He also patted Fong Bei's shoulder and laughed. "Don't be polite with Fat Dragons. He doesn't like to be polite." "Hey, wait." Fong Bei took out a food container from the bag and handed it to Poplar Fruit and said, "Take this pineapple and eat it with Brother Long and Fat Dragon. It was planted by a relative and was just sent yesterday. It's delicious." "Pineapple?" Fat Dragon's eyes lit up and followed Poplar Fruit to the dining table. After Poplar Fruit opened the food container, he couldn't help but reach out to grab it. However, he was slapped down by Poplar Fruit. "Go wash your hands," Poplar Fruit said with his eyes wide open. Fat Dragon came back from washing his hands and saw Poplar Fruit using a toothpick. He was speechless and asked, "Can't you just let me eat with a toothpick? Why do I have to wash my hands?" Pay attention to hygiene. You have to wash your hands before eating with a toothpick. Poplar Fruit said. Fat Dragon didn't have time to argue with him. He gulped down 2 pieces of pineapple and smacked his lips contentedly, saying, "It's delicious. It's so sweet that honey comes out of it. It's not bad, right?" Poplar Fruit also tasted a piece and said with a smile, "Baby, their pineapple is famous in Yangcheng." Fong Beibei changed her clothes and came out. She looked at Kiki strangely and asked, why isn't Kiki here to eat? In the past, Kiki would be the first to rush over when she heard that there was good food. Didn't she see that Goldie was already wagging its tail and walking around? "She's playing games," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Fong Beibei went over and persuaded Kiki. Then she took the phone from Kiki's hand and pushed her in the direction of Poplar Fruit. She said, Go find Daddy and ask for good food." Kiki hurriedly ran over and asked Daddy to give her a piece of pineapple. Just as she ate it, she turned around and ran back. Poplar Fruit couldn't stop her. His voice echoed in the air. "Is it good?" "It's good." Kiki didn't look back and ran to Fong Beibei's side. She looked at Fong Beibei, who was playing with her phone, and said, Ma, I'll teach you how to play." "How do you play?" Fong Beibei asked curiously. "You have to tap the screen." Kiki squeezed to Fong Beibei's side. She licked her lips that were still a little sweet from eating the pineapple and said, "Tap it. That stupid bird can fly and can't hit the water pipe." "Really? I don't know how I hit it just now. Let me try again," Fong Beibei said with interest. However, Fong Beibei tried according to Kiki's method. The bird flew to the water pipe. She was nervous and tapped her finger twice. The bird flew up and hit the water pipe. "Oh, it hit it," Fong Beibei said regretfully. "I don't think it will hit it. Ma is so weak." Kiki raised her little head and proudly put up 5 fingers. She said, "Kiki was so good just now. She could get 5 points in one go." "What do you mean by 5 points?" Fong Beibei asked curiously. "It means that after crossing a section of the water pipe, you get 1 point," Kiki patiently explained. While eating and watching Fong Beibei and the others play, Fat Dragon nudged Poplar Fruit with his elbow and said with a smile, "Fruit, you found a good wife. She takes care of the family, has a good temper, and is educated." This poked Poplar Fruit's itch. He immediately beamed with joy. As they were talking, Fong Beibei gritted her teeth and started the game again. She finally passed the first level, but the second level was rejected by the water pipe. Fong Beibei was not satisfied. She pouted and looked at Poplar Fruit and complained, "I can obviously do it, but my hands and feet don't listen to me." Fong Beibei's calculation ability was very strong. She could calculate the trajectory of the bird and how she should operate it to pass through the water pipe, but her hands were not as accurate and flexible as a robot's. She accidentally knocked too much or too little. After playing twice, Fong Beibei was annoyed to find that she could not pass the second level. "Give it to me, give it to me." Kiki finally could not hold it in and wanted to snatch the phone. "Baby, give me your phone. I'll help you play the next level." Poplar Fruit smiled and helped Fong Beibei download the game. He said, "Don't be discouraged. I didn't get a single point just now either, right? Then I'll compete with you." Fong Beibei said excitedly, "Where's your score? I don't think there's a leaderboard, right?" Poplar Fruit turned to ask Fat Dragon. "No, we can try to design one." Fat Dragon scratched his head and laughed dryly. "There's not enough leaderboards, right? Those are all awesome people. I want to compete with stupid people. Shan is stupider than me. I want her to play with me." Fong Beibei hung up again. She raised her head and said, perhaps her score of 1 or 2 points would be enough to show off in front of Lin Xingshan for a while. Poplar Fruit patted Fat Dragon's shoulder and laughed. "Yes, it should be connected to social media. This way, I can send my game score to other friends. Sometimes, a casual sentence could turn the world around in the future." Chapter 10:16. At noon, Poplar Fruit was sorting out his translation when his phone suddenly rang. It was a call from Guishan Province. Although he did not remember the number, Poplar Fruit still remembered that it was the Xiong Family Village School's landline that had just been installed. Before he picked up the phone, Poplar Fruit's heart was pounding. If he remembered correctly, The results of Lidong County's primary school entrance examination should be released tomorrow, if not today. Poplar Fruit's heart was pounding fiercely. He looked at his phone with a dry mouth. How long had it been since he felt this kind of longing and worry? Last time, was he waiting for the college entrance examination results and university admission results? Or was he waiting for Fong Beibei's response after his confession? None of these were important. Poplar Fruit quickly grabbed his phone and answered the call. Yes, yes. Poplar Fruit held his phone and paced back and forth in the study room. His face was filled with anxiety, nervousness, and anxiety. How much? He immediately stopped. Really? Poplar Fruit's face was filled with joy. He clenched his fists nervously, afraid that he had misheard. That's great. That's great. After getting confirmation, Poplar Fruit finally laughed heartily. He waved his fist in the air, and the tense atmosphere suddenly disappeared. I'm not talking to you anymore. Poplar Fruit laughed heartily and said, I have to tell this good news to the other teachers as soon as possible. Okay, for sure. Goodbye. After hanging up the phone, Poplar Fruit raised his hands and jumped around in the study room in high spirits. At that moment, he was as happy as a child who had won a lollipop. Fortunately, no one saw it. Otherwise, those who were familiar with Poplar Fruit would be shocked. After all, Poplar Fruit was usually known for his maturity and steadiness. After fooling around for a while, Poplar Fruit opened the door and excitedly rushed upstairs. He opened the door and threw himself on the big bed. Fong Beibei, who had just woken up from her afternoon nap, was startled. Uncle, what are you doing? She rubbed her sleepy eyes and pouted. Poplar Fruit turned over and pressed Fong Beibei's body. He kissed her little mouth and laughed. Because I have good news. Why don't you guess what the good news is? I can't guess. Fong Beibei put her arms around Poplar Fruit's neck and shook her head with a smile. Oh, Papa and Mama are kissing each other. Kiki also woke up. She lay on her little bed and groaned. You don't want to play with Kiki. You're so bad. Poplar Fruit and the others couldn't help laughing. Poplar Fruit went over and picked up his daughter. He kissed her little face and said, Come on, I'll let you kiss as much as you want. What good news is it? After being disturbed by Kiki, Poplar Fruit forgot about it. Fong Beibei, on the other hand, was itching and couldn't hold back. She came from the other side and asked while holding Poplar Fruit's empty hand. The results of the Xiong family's children's elementary school entrance exam are out. Poplar Fruit kept them guessing and stopped talking halfway. Look at how happy you are. They must have done well in the exam. Tell me. Fong Beibei was not satisfied. She shook Poplar Fruit's hand and pouted her mouth to urge him. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, They really did well in the exam. Didn't we have 15 children who took the exam? Fong Beibei nodded. 15 people were not a lot. The main reason was that the Xiong family's children's foundation was very poor. These 15 children were the seeds left by Teacher Ming. 5 of them were the same age as Xiong Xiaolin. At that time, many children of the same age had given up on studying. They either stayed at home to farm or went to work in the city. And their wait had finally paid off. Compared to the Xiong family's village, which only had 3 people who took the elementary school entrance exam last year, there were 15 people who signed up this year. It was believed that there would be more next year. 15 people took the exam, and all 15 passed. Poplar Fruit proudly waved his hand at Fong Beibei. However, because his left hand was held by Fong Beibei, he could only move his right hand that was holding Kiki. I'm going to fall. Kiki was shaken for a while. She quickly hugged her father's neck and cried out in a clear voice. You won't fall. Poplar Fruit rubbed her little butt and laughed. Then, Fong Beibei asked in astonishment, All 15 passed? Isn't that amazing? It's really 15. Poplar Fruit was really proud of these children. His eyes sparkled as he said, None of the 15 fell behind. 6 of them got into the key schools, and 1 of them got into the top 10 in the county. That's great. My face is going numb from listening to it. Fong Beibei said excitedly, Is Xiong Xiaoxi the best? Yes, it's Xiong Xiaoxi. Poplar Fruit laughed. He and Fong Beibei used to think highly of Xiong Xiaoxi. Although this child was a little quiet in class and did not take the initiative to raise her hand to answer questions, she was usually very serious in her studies. There was a record in the system that every day she was the first to arrive at school and the last to leave school. Kiki knows Sister Xiaoxi. Where's Brother Xiaofeng? Kiki raised her hand and asked. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, Your brother Xiaofeng didn't take the exam. He's still early. Xiong Xiaofeng was indeed still young. Moreover, his foundation was very poor and he did not like to study. However, he had a unique talent in computers. In the past, when Fat Dragon and the rest were on the mountain, they were Fat Dragon and Kai Simin's followers. Later on, they continued to learn computer science from the computer science teachers through online distance education. The reason why Xiong Jiwu could manage the school so well was because of Xiong Xiaofeng's contribution. All the small problems were fixed by Xiong Xiaofeng. After hearing that it was not Brother Xiaofeng, Kiki's little face immediately fell. She waved her hand dispiritedly and said, Okay, it's pretty good, but Kiki wants to wash her face. Looking at this posture, those who did not know would think that Goddess Zhen Huan was going to return to the palace. Recently, the little girl had been accompanying Fong Beibei to watch dramas and imitated the roles on TV. She was a little like a little witch with many changes. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, Why are you not interested? In a few days, follow Mom and Dad to the mountain. Won't you be able to see Brother Xiaofeng? Kiki's eyes immediately lit up. She clapped her hands and giggled. Yes. Kiki wants to teach Brother Xiaofeng how to dance. Boys don't like to dance, Fong Beibei said with a smile. Kiki turned her head. She was somewhat puzzled as to why boys did not like to dance. Fong Beibei pointed at Poplar Fruit and said while holding back her laughter, You'll know when you look at your father. Kiki was still pondering with her head down. She still did not understand the difference between men and women. Poplar Fruit handed Kiki to Fong Beibei and said with a smile, You take her to wash her face. I'm going to call the others and tell them this good news. Chapter 1017. Going Xiong Village was one of the plans for this holiday, but before that, Poplar Fruit still had some work matters to deal with. For example, he had to sort out the report for the next semester at school, and for the New Translation Road Publishing House, he had to attend a mid-year summary meeting tomorrow. Going to New Translation Road meant that he had to come into contact with Zheng Yujie. Although the two of them still had a lot of phone contact, Poplar Fruit hadn't seen her face-to-face after that showdown. For this reason, Poplar Fruit nervously told Fong Beibei about his itinerary for the next day. It's okay, you can go. Fong Beibei was actually very straightforward and agreed without thinking. Poplar Fruit was stunned by Fong Beibei's reaction. He was a little confused. According to Fong Beibei's personality, she was very vigilant and would even be a little jealous from time to time. Fong Beibei stretched, revealing a small waist that had become thin after daily exercise. She smiled brightly and said, It's really okay. In the past, I didn't know anything and was always afraid that you wouldn't want me anymore. But now I understand. I know that you're not a fickle person. You've been good to me for so long. Why should I always be afraid? Poplar Fruit was still a little worried. He scratched his head and asked, Have you really thought it through? Fong Beibei nodded hard. She turned her body and snuggled into Poplar Fruit's chest. She rubbed her head and happily hugged Poplar Fruit's arm and said, Of course, Uncle didn't leave me in that situation. What do I have to worry about now? She was referring to the time when she had cried and pushed Poplar Fruit to Zheng Yujie, but Poplar Fruit had returned to her side in the end. I recently read a book that said to give you men some space. You can't be too close to each other. If he really wants to leave, even chains won't be able to keep him. He won't leave you. No matter how you indulge him, he won't change his mind. Fong Beibei counted with her fingers and muttered to Poplar Fruit, I was wrong in the past. I was more clingy to you than Kiki. After a long time, it may have had the opposite effect and made you sick of me. How could that be? What kind of books are you reading? Poplar Fruit smiled and rubbed Fong Beibei's hair. The freshly washed hair was fragrant and had a unique charm. How could I be tired of you? You don't say. I think this book makes a lot of sense. Fong Beibei propped herself up and clung to Poplar Fruit's shoulder. She looked at him intimately and smiled. It also said that a girl should have her own independent thoughts and career. Otherwise, one day, she will become a man's vassal. Poplar Fruit laughed and pinched Fong Beibei's nose. He said, I agree with this, because a girl who has her own thoughts and the ability to think for herself is the most beautiful. The beauty here is not the appearance, but the temperament that gives people the feeling. I support you. Do what you want to do. Don't sacrifice yourself to accommodate me. Poplar Fruit smiled and hugged Fong Beibei's waist. He said, and our family doesn't need you to sacrifice anything. We don't lack anything. Fong Beibei smiled and shook Poplar Fruit's arm. She said, then I'll say something. You can't be angry, okay? Poplar Fruit raised both of his hands and said innocently, when did I get angry at you? 2 days ago, didn't you say that this summer, when we came back from Xiong Family Village, we would go on a trip together? Fong Beibei lowered her head and played with Poplar Fruit's fingers. She said, but I might not be able to go. Poplar Fruit asked doubtfully. Poplar Fruit had planned to go on a trip abroad, because last year, Poplar Fruit went to France and Fong Beibei went to America. The whole family did not have the chance to go on a trip abroad together. Now, he really did not lack money. Since he had this condition, why not leave another memory for everyone? Isn't the modeling competition about to start again? Fong Beibei bit her lower lip and raised her head to look at Poplar Fruit. She explained, the teacher asked me if I wanted to participate this year. I want to participate again. Last time, I won the special prize, but I still want to lead the team and win the prize again. Fong Beibei said hesitantly. Poplar Fruit suddenly understood. Fong Beibei's thoughts were actually the same as Wang Di's last year. She wanted to prove herself. She wanted to prove that she could achieve good results, even without the help of seniors. Wang Di and Shen Hong had already graduated this year. At the end of last month, Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei went to take their graduation photos. Fong Beibei had just finished her second year. She had already gotten rid of her identity as a newcomer and began to yearn for her own glory. However, to participate in the competition, just like last year, Fong Beibei needed to spend nearly 2 months on it. Thus, Poplar Fruit's previous travel plans were disrupted. Of course, he was reluctant to part with her. However, Poplar Fruit did not have such a romantic attitude. He smiled and said, it's okay. Aren't you going to the United States for the competition this year? When the time comes, we'll meet in the United States. Let's take advantage of the summer vacation and have fun together. Fong Beibei happily hugged Poplar Fruit's arm and nodded. She said, I know Uncle will support me. Of course. Poplar Fruit smiled. I'm looking forward to the day when you and the fields medal. We have to work hard together. Yeah, Uncle, you've already published a book. I have to catch up. Otherwise, when you win the Nobel Prize in Literature and I don't have any achievements, I'll be too weak. Fong Beibei said as she nodded vigorously. Do you think it's that easy to win the Nobel Prize in Literature? Poplar Fruit smiled and gently flicked her forehead. In China, there's only one teacher, Moyen. I can't even compare to him. It hurts. Fong Beibei rubbed her forehead and rolled her eyes at Poplar Fruit. Just to clarify, there won't be a story about Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei winning the 2 awards in this book. Even if it's a novel, it can't be too skewed. Perhaps they'll succeed in the future, but they won't be able to reach 1,000 miles without taking small steps. They need to continue working hard together. As for why I brought it up, let's just treat it as a little fun between the 2 of them. You really don't blame me? While brushing her teeth, Fong Beibei was still worried and asked. She felt that Poplar Fruit had put a lot of thought into planning a family trip. I really don't blame you. Poplar Fruit picked up a towel and wiped his mouth. He laughed heartily and said, didn't I tell you? I'll support you in doing what you want to do. You can go on the trip anytime, but you can't change the time for this competition. Besides, even if we decide on the time, there might be some unexpected changes. This plan can't keep up with the changes. That's really hard to say. Chapter 10:18. Baby, I'm going out. After saying that, Poplar Fruit changed his shoes at the door and was about to go out. Papa, wait. Chi-Chi's voice suddenly came from upstairs. She had obviously heard her father's movements and hurriedly ran out of her toy room. When she went down the stairs, the loyal and devoted Gold was in front of her, worried that she might fall down the stairs. "What's wrong?" Poplar Fruit smiled, squatted down to catch his daughter, and asked, "Do you want to go too?" "But Dad is going to work." Kiki shook her head, waved her hand, and said, "No, Kiki doesn't want to go to work with Papa." It was boring when her father was working, and Kiki couldn't bear the loneliness. She lowered her head and whispered in her father's ear, "Kiki wants to say that Papa has to come back early in the evening, and then we'll go for a drive to the beach." Poplar Fruit looked at Kiki with some surprise and said with a smile, "What? Did Mom want you to say that?" "No." Kiki shook her head violently and almost shook herself to the ground. She pointed to herself and said with certainty, "Kiki wanted to say it herself. Kiki is afraid that Papa and Mama Ma will quarrel again because of Aunt Zheng Yujia, so she wants Papa to go home early." Kiki looked around secretly and then whispered in her father's ear. Poplar Fruit was surprised. He didn't expect that his daughter could think so much at such a young age. It seemed that the big quarrel between Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei that day also affected Kiki. He smiled and touched Kiki's little head and said, "Don't worry, Mom and Dad won't quarrel anymore." After comforting his daughter, Poplar Fruit drove to New Translation Road. The poor publishing house, which used to be crowded in the old residential building, had now moved into a very elegant office building in the center of the city, occupying the 5th to 7th floors. According to Zheng Yujia, this building was her aunt's property, and of course, the rent was extremely discounted. After nearly a year of rapid development, New Translation Road had also recruited a lot of outstanding talents in the publishing industry, and because it was mainly located in the foreign market, it also invited back several Chinese executives who had worked in foreign media. At present, the main structure of New Translation Road was still dominated by Zheng Yujia. Pang Yu gradually gave up his editorial rights and fully assisted Zheng Yujia in managing the overall situation. The management staff below were all recruited later. The management staff of the old publishing house had been dismissed because the management philosophy was too old, and the management staff borrowed from Xinda Translation had also returned to their original positions. Although Zheng Yujia was young, after half a year of experience, she still completed the control of the company, and with the skills she learned from her father, she really controlled these young talents. Poplar Fruit could see this from the awe and admiration in their eyes when they looked at Zheng Yujia in the conference room. When she saw Poplar Fruit, Zheng Yujia's eyes slightly fluctuated, and the emotions in them were somewhat difficult to describe. Was it the sadness of missing you after not seeing you for a long time? Or was it the bitterness of you laughing at me, scolding me, hating me, and abandoning me? But I took you as my first love? Maybe it was both. This was unknown. Poplar Fruit smiled bitterly, but he still gave Zheng Yuji a face and greeted her with a gentle hug. However, Zheng Yuji hugged him tightly, not knowing if she was venting the dissatisfaction in her heart. It had to be said that Poplar Fruit, who had broken out of the cocoon and been reborn as a man, was no longer as ignorant as before. The temptation of Zheng Yujia's body to him was becoming more and more obvious. When he hugged Zheng Yujia squeezed her curvy body together with Poplar Fruit. The thin white collar skirt, the almost real touch, almost made Poplar Fruit have a reaction on the spot. Fortunately, they quickly separated. Not to mention Pang Yu, many executives present had a strange look in their eyes. The relationship between Zheng Yujia and Poplar Fruit had always been a mystery within New Translation Road. Zheng Yujia's charm was naturally needless to say. She was less than 30 years old and was at the most mature and charming stage of a woman. She had talent, beauty, money, and status. It could be said that she was the best among women. However, Zheng Yujia had always been single, which was something they couldn't understand. There were even some executives who wanted to pursue her, but they were scared back by Zheng Yujia's arrogance. Poplar Fruit's talent was also beyond doubt. In the past year, although his results had not been exposed by the media, The executives who often came into contact with reports knew the best about Poplar Fruit's power. And there was a detail worth thinking about. That was, Poplar Fruit's rise was also driven by Zheng Yujie. Why did he resolutely jump out of Dongxin Publishing when his future was bright and follow Zheng Yujie to New Translation Road, which was nothing at the beginning? Was the relationship between the two people really pure colleagues? People with brains wouldn't believe this setting. What are you looking at? Go back and prepare for the meeting. Zheng Yujie glanced around and shouted at her assistant. Immediately, everyone shrunk their heads in fear and scattered back to their posts. Zheng Yujie's assistant was the little assistant who had followed her. Although several old employees who had followed her had been promoted, Zheng Yujie had been reluctant to let go of the little assistant. She just gave her a raise and kept her by her side. She knew a lot about Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie. Zheng Yujie's love for Poplar Fruit was no secret to her. However, the little assistant was very dissatisfied with Poplar Fruit. When she lowered her head and poured tea, she had been whispering secretly. Who asked Poplar Fruit to be so heartless and not know how to cherish? Look at her boss. He's such a nice person. Although she was usually fierce, she was a very kind and generous person in private. There was no other boss in the world who was as good as her. The little assistant also felt sorry for Zheng Yujie. Zheng Yujie is heartless. Why do you still love him so much? When she saw Zheng Yujie's red face after hugging Poplar Fruit, she sighed again and again. While pouring tea, Zheng Yujie did not wait. When she saw that everyone was here, she immediately started the mid-year meeting in advance. Today's meeting is very simple. We don't need a moderator. Zheng Yujie stretched the telescopic stick and said, the main topic is our summary of the first half of the year, the discussion of the second half of the year's development, and the announcement of the performance indicators for each department. Poplar Fruit sat up slightly. Although he had a good relationship with Zheng Yujie, he understood that he should respect Zheng Yujie in such a big occasion. He had to protect the prestige that she had established in the people under her. Chapter 1019. If it weren't for Zheng Yujie's introduction at the meeting, Poplar Fruit wouldn't have known that New Translation Road had developed at such an amazing speed. Although it had been less than a year since its establishment, New Translation Road sales had already exceeded 2 billion yuan. It was just sales, not pure profit. It still needed to be shared with other aspects. Of course, they had to eliminate teacher Mo Yan's works first. Later, Poplar Fruit had also submitted many translations of his works to New Translation Road. After all, this was a once-in-a-century opportunity. They couldn't possibly let another Nobel Prize winner's work fall into their hands next year, could they? However, excluding the sales of teacher Mo Yan's works, New Translation Road sales were close to 4 billion yuan. Among them, 95% came from the sales of translations of online works, while the remaining 5% came from the translations of some independent translators who had a glimmer of hope for the new translation path. These were all outstanding translations that Pang Yu had roped in through the connections he had accumulated over the years. However, from another data, it could be seen that at least 1.8 billion yuan of the 2 billion yuan sales were from Poplar Fruit's translations. Although Poplar Fruit was unwilling to admit it, everyone recognized that Poplar Fruit alone was supporting the future of New Translation Road. Of course, this was also because the translation of online literature had not been fully spread out yet, and there were not many capable translators. Otherwise, no matter how fierce Poplar Fruit was, he would still be alone. He wouldn't be like now, where the sales of his translations accounted for 90% of the company's sales. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit was a dedicated man. The word dedicated was in double quotation marks. He didn't become arrogant because of his achievements, nor did he abandon New Translation Road and jump ship because of other companies' recruitment. Among other things, Dongxin Publishing, which had left Zheng Yujie and the others, had sent people to Poplar Fruit School several times. This happened at the end of the semester. No one knew where they got the news, but they gradually set their eyes on this cake. However, compared to the small but flexible New Translation Road, Dongxin Publishing obviously had the same clumsy management system as other state-owned enterprises. Although they had expressed their intention to enter the field of online literature export when they invited Poplar Fruit, they hadn't done anything yet. Of course, Poplar Fruit wouldn't accept their poaching. He joined New Translation Road not only to realize his translation value, but also to make up to Zheng Yujie through his talent, so that he wouldn't feel guilty for making Zheng Yujie wait so hopelessly. Currently, a lot of attention is on us in the market, but most of the domestic publishing houses are in a wait-and-see state. So, we have at least a year to defend our territory. Zheng Yujie concluded a little mischievously. At her request, Poplar Fruit stood up and summarized the current situation of online literature translators. Currently, our publishing house has officially contracted translators, that is, those who can publish books for sales. Excluding me, there are 46. On average, we can publish about 30 new books every month. Poplar Fruit didn't mention that he translated about 4 or 5 of these books. However, compared to our huge base of online literature, these 30 books are still too little. It was worth noting that the book referred to the number of books published under the Common Literature System. Generally, it was 500,000 to 600,000 words. Generally, online literature was more than 1 or 2 million words. So without a few books, it couldn't be considered an online literature work. Poplar Fruit wasn't good at using data to speak. He quickly changed the topic and said, "From this, we can see that we still need to continue to find and train online literature translators to support the increasing market demand that the boss mentioned just now. Currently, our online literature translators training model is relatively simple." Poplar Fruit laughed. "The main reason is that I have a cooperation with Shinda Translation. They organize training classes to select talents that we urgently need. Currently, the 46 officially contracted translators are students from the past 3 rounds of training classes. Previously, the boss asked me if we could directly cooperate with universities to train students to become qualified translators," Poplar Fruit said. "This method is actually not very feasible. After my experiment last semester, the students in the university didn't have a solid foundation. Plus, they were burdened by their own homework and couldn't devote more time to translation training. In the second half of the year, we could try to open a beginner's class on online translation. On one hand, we can let more hobbyists come in contact with this field. On the other hand, we can promote our company and let some interested and capable translators join the new translation path. We can also let those who are good at it sign up for advanced training classes. I will teach them to become qualified online literature translators," Poplar Fruit said confidently. His confidence came from his own ability. Even in the whole of China, there was probably no other translator who was more knowledgeable about online literature translation than him. Later, there was a piece of content that Poplar Fruit was interested in. It was a summary by the manager of the Online Literature Original Content Management Department. From his statement, Poplar Fruit found out that this department had made great achievements in the past 6 months. According to Poplar Fruit's previous plan, the copyrighted online literature would be categorized according to the quality of the work. Among them, the books with translation value would be divided into 4 levels, which also corresponded to the level of the translator. Translators who were not of the same level would not be able to translate more advanced online literature. This way, it would protect the quality of the novels. It was unknown how much manpower and material resources they had invested. It actually took them more than half a year to categorize hundreds of thousands of online literature works. Even if they borrowed the data from the novel website, it was still a huge amount of work. Of course, Zheng Yujie was not satisfied with the copyrighted content. After all, at present, there were only a few hundred high-quality, top-notch works, and online literature was still developing rapidly. If they only showed off their excellent works in the past, they would definitely be surpassed by other publishers. "We have to reach a cooperation with a novel website," Zheng Yujie instructed. "Treat them as authors and further divide the profits." "That's fine, but we must keep up with the pace of the times." "Are we still going to work with that website?" "They were quite easy to talk to last time." Peng Yu asked. Zheng Yujie shook her head and said, "No, their administrator is short-sighted and useless. It's better to work with Mr. Wu." I heard that he has now left and came to Tongsun to set up a new website. Many editors and authors have followed him. It was the first time Poplar Fruit heard this news. He smiled and asked, "Is that so? Then won't he fight with his old employer?" It's going to be a fight. Not long ago, the industry was still in an uproar. Zheng Yujie smiled and said, "However, I still think highly of him. Our cooperation is to choose people who have foresight and are dedicated to literature." Chapter 10:20. The meeting lasted for a whole morning and half an afternoon. At noon, a group of bosses and executives gathered around the conference table to eat boxed lunches. They really didn't care about their image at all. After the meeting, Poplar Fruit stretched and prepared to go home. However, Zheng Yujie suddenly said, "Others can leave first. Poplar Fruit, you stay. I have something to discuss with you." Turning his head, he saw that she was lowering her head to sort out her notebook and some messy reports in front of her. It seemed that she was casually calling him because of work. However, how could Poplar Fruit believe it? What kind of work matters could Zheng Yujie have to discuss with him? Poplar Fruit, this guy, didn't care about people or things. He was just a shopkeeper who didn't do anything. Even if it was his book, Zheng Yujie only had a call to inform him. He would still find it troublesome and let Zheng Yujie decide on her own. If it were Zheng Yujie, others might have already sold Poplar Fruit. Not to mention Poplar Fruit, others wouldn't believe it. Looking at the dodgy eyes of the senior officials when they went out, and the little assistant who left with a sneer, Poplar Fruit could only smile bitterly. There was no one else. Zheng Yujie walked to the door, locked it, and then walked towards Poplar Fruit. She put her arm on the conference table in front of Poplar Fruit's seat, looked at him, and asked, "Gentleman Yang, how come you have time to come out and see me today?" Zheng Yujie emphasized the word free, revealing her deep resentment. Poplar Fruit looked at her beautiful red phoenix eyes, smiled bitterly, and said, "Yujie, don't make trouble." "Why would I make trouble?" Zheng Yujie snorted. She put her hands in front of her chest and gently moved back to sit on the conference table. Her black skirt was slightly rolled up, revealing her round thighs wrapped in silk stockings. However, Zheng Yujie was a little embarrassed. Her pink face was slightly red, and she pretended to stretch out her skirt as if nothing had happened. "Did she not let you come out to see me?" Zheng Yujie had always been straightforward, and she was even more unscrupulous with Poplar Fruit. She didn't care about the awkward expression on Poplar Fruit's face at all. How could this be? Poplar Fruit gently moved his chair back and said with a smile, "Bebe has thought it through now. Don't worry, she won't let her imagination run wild when she meets her friends in the future. Furthermore, she also said that she would like to invite you over for a meal. Ever since we moved, you haven't had a proper visit yet." Poplar Fruit smiled. This was really what Fong Bebe had said. Poplar Fruit had observed Fong Bebe's expression at that time, and there was no strange expression on her face. She really thought so. However, Poplar Fruit was an idiot who didn't understand the subtext between women. When Zheng Yujie heard this, her heart was filled with jealousy. Do you think I'll definitely go just because she asked me to?" Zheng Yujie said proudly with her head held high. She blinked hard, afraid that her eyes couldn't help but turn red. To be honest, Zheng Yujie really didn't care about Fong Bebe, who was cautious and didn't know anything. Knowing that she would be afraid of anything, Zheng Yujie felt that she had victory in her hands. She wasn't afraid of competing with my daughter, but she was afraid of competing with Fong Bebe, who had been reborn. Fong Bebe now had the demeanor of a woman who had victory in her hands. She wasn't bashful or arrogant, and she wouldn't continue to do those stupid things that Poplar Fruit disliked. This made her see almost no hope. But would Zheng Yujie back down because of this? Obviously not. Since she's so generous, then don't go home tonight. Let's go to the bar together. Zheng Yujie looked at Poplar Fruit and said aggressively. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Yujie, don't mess around. You know I don't like this kind of place." "What a coward." Zheng Yujie snorted and looked at Poplar Fruit with disdain. "This isn't cowardice. This is a way of life." Poplar Fruit stood up, patted his pants, and started to pack his things. "Okay, I won't joke with you anymore. Zheng Yujie pressed Poplar Fruit's hand and said, let's talk business. Say it. Poplar Fruit gently withdrew his hand. Hearing that they were talking business, Poplar Fruit's expression also became serious. You haven't shown up for so long. How about tonight as an apology and have a meal with me? Zheng Yujie's business was this. She said, I'm not asking you to treat me to a French meal. A food stall is fine too. Without waiting for Poplar Fruit's reply, she quickly said, if you're afraid that she'll be worried, we don't need a private room. Let's go to the main hall and eat openly. Just have a meal with me. Zheng Yujie looked at Poplar Fruit with a pitiful look. Looking at Zheng Yujie's appearance, Poplar Fruit really wanted to agree to her request. But reason told Poplar Fruit that he shouldn't do this. He shook his head with a wry smile and said, I really can't today. When I went out, Kiki told me that she wanted me to drive her for a ride tonight. You're just a child slave. Zheng Yujie angrily pushed Poplar Fruit's chest. She jumped down from the desk, looked up at Poplar Fruit, and asked, then tell me, when will you have time to have a meal with me? Yujie, you can't do this. Poplar Fruit still tried to persuade her implicitly. Didn't she say it already? Didn't she not care? Zheng Yujie turned her head to the side, not letting Poplar Fruit see her aggrieved expression. It's not a matter of whether she cares or not. If I do this, I'll feel bad in my heart. Do you understand? Poplar Fruit said with a wry smile, and if I really do that and become a fickle person, will you still like me? If you're only fickle in my heart, then what does it matter? Zheng Yujie turned her head, looked valiantly at Poplar Fruit, and said. In this regard, Poplar Fruit could only scratch his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry, and was speechless. With a snort, Zheng Yujie took a deep breath. In the end, she didn't insist. She took a step back, gave Poplar Fruit a way out, and said, okay, if you don't want to go, then don't go. Didn't you say that she wants to invite me to her house for a meal? Okay, tell her I'll wait. Don't forget. Looking at this, how could Poplar Fruit dare to tell Fong Bei? However, how could he know a girl's mind? Fong Bei was not just for show. Zheng Yujie turned back to her seat, put everything in her bag, and muttered angrily, damn Xiao Dai, why didn't you help me pack my things? Sooner or later, I'll change my assistant. I don't know who drove her out just now. Let's go, you child slave. Go back to accompany Kiki. Zheng Yujie said, opened the door of the conference room, and took the lead to go out. Poplar Fruit shook his head, and then followed her out, calmly accepting everyone's gossipy eyes. Chapter 10:21. When Yangguo's family, as well as a group of representatives from the Remote Teaching Association, arrived at Lidong County, they felt that the atmosphere was different from before. They only had 3 cars, but they were welcomed by more than 20 people from Lidong County. Not only that, but the Big Red Banner also attracted a lot of people from Lidong County. It was as if they were welcoming the guidance of their superiors. However, the banner did indeed say that they were welcoming their university student volunteer teachers. Also, Meng Ping, the uncle who usually dressed very rigidly, was in a suit and leather shoes. He was standing in front of the leaders with a smile on his face. Before this, Poplar Fruit and the rest didn't receive any notice. Even though Meng Ping and Poplar Fruit were very close, he didn't inform them in advance. Poplar Fruit and the rest didn't dare to delay, so they quickly got out of the car. In a daze, they didn't know how to feign civility and flatter each other as they were welcomed to the county committee. Of course, the leaders didn't continue with the greetings. They said a few words of thanks and left in a hurry, leaving Meng Ping behind to accompany them. Brother Meng, what are you doing? After they left, Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Meng Ping's face was flushed red as he smiled at Yangguo and said, what are you talking about? Can't you see? This is a surprise for you. Poplar Fruit frowned and said, Brother Meng, don't you know that I don't like to have so many social interactions? We're doing public service for the sake of the children's future. As long as we can help the children, that's enough. There's really no need for you to make such a big fuss and welcome them. Also, we don't have much time. There are only about 10 of us, so we have to split up. At least, Each group has to go to 4 different places and interact with the children in each place for 3 to 4 days. Our schedule is full, Poplar Fruit said unhappily. Poplar Fruit had heard what the leaders of the county had just said. They had wanted to arrange accommodation for them, but they had to waste the first day on such meaningless things. Who knew what arrangements they would have for the next day? How could Poplar Fruit, who had already promised the children on the internet, not be anxious? In his opinion, Meng Ping's thoughts should be the same as his. Wasn't this guy also quite stubborn? How could he gradually lose his own nature after only being the bureau chief for a year? Meng Ping already knew that Poplar Fruit would say this. He smiled faintly and said, Poplar Fruit, don't be so extreme about everything. As for letting you stay, I just want to ask you, do you want to help more children? Yes, Poplar Fruit blurted out without thinking. Then he asked curiously, but what does this have to do with socializing? Meng Ping seemed to be a little irrelevant as he said, do you know why they left so quickly? Poplar Fruit shook his head in confusion. It's to welcome the leaders of Liang City. Meng Ping sighed and said, I'm not afraid of you laughing at me when I say some things. Not only Liang City, but the entire Liang City is not rich. There are almost 50 poor mountainous areas like Xiong Village, where children can't go to school. So many? Poplar Fruit was shocked and asked, how can there be so many? Meng Ping smiled bitterly and said, how can there be a lack of poor children in a barren place? Of course, compared to Liang City, the other counties are a little better. They can more or less afford to hire village teachers to teach the children. However, as you can see, the situation is similar to Liang City. The teachers in these places can't stay for long. From time to time, the children can't attend classes. Poplar Fruit understood. Village teachers with noble morals like Meng Ping were few in number. Many of them couldn't stand the lessons and secretly ran away. It was better to find a job in the city than to be a teacher in the mountains. Even if they didn't run away, the frequent resignation, transfer, and recruitment would delay the children's learning process. Of course, Poplar Fruit thought more deeply. These village teachers were generally poor. This wasn't to belittle them, but to objectively compare their abilities with the teachers in the city. Teaching resources were already scarce, and these children were receiving low-quality education. How could they compare to the children in the city? The poor mountainous areas of Liang City had a comprehensive distance education. This was a very bold move. Of course, the reason why the leaders in the county and city were able to accept it, other than the fact that they couldn't do anything about it, was also because of Meng Ping's persuasion. In the end, after a semester for the children in Xiong Village, it could be said to be 2 semesters, but for the children in the other mountainous areas, it was less than a semester. Meng Ping had compiled a report that surprised the leaders in the city. It also made the officials in Liang City, who had been disgraced, proud again. Distance education had made the children in the mountainous areas change a lot. This was not only in terms of academic performance, but also in terms of spirit. This surprised the leader in charge of education in Liang City. Before you came, they sent someone to investigate the site. They were worried that I would give them a fake report. Meng Ping snorted with some arrogance. But why would I give them a satellite? You're looking down on me too much. Poplar Fruit's frown finally relaxed, and he chuckled. This was the attitude that the unruly Meng Ping of the officialdom should have. Meng Ping continued, they feel that if distance education is really feasible, then there's no time to lose. They should quickly promote it in Liang City. Meng Ping looked around, lowered his voice, and said to Poplar Fruit, Poplar Fruit, you don't understand. This deputy mayor was only transferred this year. He is anxious to achieve good results. However, let's not argue with him. As long as he can treat the children well and make more children study well, what's the big deal if we sacrifice some time to talk to him? Poplar Fruit smiled and said, well, if you explain it clearly, I can understand. Don't worry, I'll go and tell them. When they returned to the place where everyone was resting, Kiki, who had been running around for a long time, immediately rushed up. She pulled her father's clothes and jumped up and down. Papa, let's go quickly. Sister Xiaolin and Brother Xiaofeng are waiting for Kiki. Kiki had been talking about this since they set off from Yangqing City. Poplar Fruit's ears were about to be calloused. He kissed the little girl embarrassedly and said, "Kiki, we may not be able to do it today. We have to stay in the county for the night. Tomorrow, I will take you to see your brother and sister tomorrow, okay?" No. Kiki pouted, pushed her father away, and ran to Fong Bei. She pointed at Poplar Fruit and said aggrievedly, Ma, Papa is lying. He said that we can go up the mountain today." Poplar Fruit helplessly made a gesture to Fong Bei. Fong Bei could roughly guess Poplar Fruit's difficulties. She gave Poplar Fruit a reassuring look, hugged Kiki, and softly comforted her. Chapter 10:22. Poplar Fruit didn't expect that they would wait from morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. During lunch, Kiki was still a little unhappy, and the other big brothers and big sisters in the team all came to comfort her. "Daddy has to do something here, and strive to help more children like Brother Xiaofeng in the future, so I'll delay Kiki a little bit more. Tomorrow, I'll definitely be able to take Kiki up the mountain. Kiki can understand Daddy, right?" When he was feeding Kiki, she turned her little head and sulked. Poplar Fruit had to do it himself and reason with Kiki. Kiki was a kind-hearted child, and she could understand her father's meaning. After hesitating for a moment, even though she was still reluctant, she turned her head and hugged her father. She sniffed and said, "Papa, Kiki knows. Kiki also wants to help other children." "That's right." Poplar Fruit smiled and touched Kiki's little head. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that he was worried about Fong Bei and Kiki running around in these places, Poplar Fruit could let them go up the mountain first. However, this was really hard to say. Barren hills and treacherous waters raise unruly people. Sometimes, people here were forced by poverty to block the road and rob people. Yang was really worried. It was possible to contact Xiong Jishir on the mountain to come down and pick them up, but it would be dark by the time he came, so it was better to move together with the team tomorrow. You just have to reason with her. When Kiki was taking a nap, Poplar Fruit and Fong Bei sat beside her and gently stroked Kiki's wet hair. He whispered to Fong Bei, "She's a 2-year-old child, but she's actually precocious and knows everything. It may be more effective to reason with her than to coax her like a child." Fong Bei also nodded in agreement. Coaxing Kiki now would only make her more difficult to deal with. Just now, she was fine in Fong Bei's arms, but now she was unhappy. In the afternoon, there was a sudden commotion outside. A group of county leaders swarmed in front of Poplar Fruit. At that time, Poplar Fruit was dumbfounded. This motherfucker. Wasn't this Chun Longjiang? Secretary Chun? Wasn't he in Guangdong? Why was he here? Poplar Fruit knew that Chun Longjiang had resigned from his position as secretary in their hometown, but he didn't know how promoted he was. When Yang Chunwan's news, Chin's appointment had not been issued, and Poplar Fruit was busy, he didn't remember to ask him his name. At that time, SSSS. "Poplar Fruit, come, let me introduce you. This is Chun Longjiang, who is in charge of education in our city, Mayor Chun." Meng Ping stepped forward and helped to introduce. "Mayor Chun, this is Poplar Fruit. Our county's distance education was initiated by him." Poplar Fruit was still looking at Chun Longjiang in a daze. Chun Longjiang laughed and said, "Okay, there's no need to introduce us. We are more familiar with each other than you." "Poplar Fruit, you didn't expect me to appear here, right? I heard the name Poplar Fruit, so I guessed it was you." Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He shook his head and said, "I really didn't expect Secretary Chun. No, I should call you Mayor Chun. Why did you mobilize so many people?" Hearing this, a leader curiously looked over and asked, "Mayor Chun, you know Xiaoyang too?" "Of course I know him. I used to be a local official in his hometown." "Haha." Chun Longjiang laughed heartily. No matter what, Poplar Fruit guessed that Chun Longjiang's background was very deep. Perhaps it was similar to the Zheng family's background. Otherwise, how could he be directly promoted from a small county in Guangdong province to a city in Guishan province as a deputy mayor? "All right, I heard that Chen Longjiang was also a county party secretary who was parachuted in. However, the places where he gained experience and accumulated grassroots work experience were not rich cities. They were either poor or slow-developing small cities. But for Poplar Fruit, this was a good thing because Chen Longjiang was in charge of education. At least, Chen Longjiang was a good official who came to do things. This was already reflected in Poplar Fruit's hometown. When old friends met, it reduced the gap between the people and the officials, and the atmosphere reached an unprecedented harmony. Li Dong's leader took the opportunity to suggest that everyone not stand, and that they should go back to the conference room to talk. No need. Chen Longjiang waved his hand and said, I didn't come here today to listen to your report in the conference room. Since we're here, let's go up the mountain and check it out. Seeing is believing. I want to see for myself the results that you have achieved over the past year. The leader of Lidong County was dumbfounded. They had not arranged anything on the mountain. The oldest one raised his hand and looked at his watch. He smiled and said, Mayor Chinlook, it's almost 4 o'clock. If we go up the mountain, we don't know when we'll arrive. How about this? You rest in Lidong tonight, and we have Yang to report to you about the overall situation of the distance education. Then, we'll go up the mountain tomorrow morning. What do you think? He smiled and suggested. No need. Even if we arrive late, we'll still arrive. Chen Longjiang waved his hand and said, Don't waste my time here. Poplar Fruit is here, and he can report to me on the way. It's better than any of you. Looking at their stunned expressions, Chen Longjiang laughed and said, You may not know, but I know that Poplar Fruit is amazing. He has a photographic memory, and he can easily come up with any data and report. Poplar Fruit, do you have the confidence to report this well? Yangguo really liked Chen Longjiang's work attitude. He smiled and said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, There's no problem with the report. Including the Xiong village, there are 17 whole schools and 3 scattered schools. I remember all the data. Okay, then what are we waiting for? Let's go. Chen Longjiang called out names and asked the deputy head of Lidong County in charge of education and Meng Ping from the Education Bureau to accompany him. The others did what they were supposed to do. Then the group of people left the county committee. Poplar Fruit went back to the back and explained to the students who were still confused. Then he smiled and pinched Kiki's little nose. He smiled and said, Are you happy now? Let's go up the mountain now, and we can see your brother Xiao Feng and sister Xiao Lin tonight. And brother Anshuan. Kiki hugged her father's thigh and smiled happily. When they were splitting the cars, Chen Longjiang had a different arrangement. He said, Let's do this. These 2 students will go to my car. Pei Yue and I will come and sit in Poplar Fruit's car. Pei Yue? Poplar Fruit was shocked. Chen Pei Yue, Chen Longjiang's daughter, the girl that Poplar Fruit saved from the bandits, was also here? Sure enough, Poplar Fruit saw a fairy-like figure come out of Chen Longjiang's car. Her face was a little red, and she didn't dare to look at Poplar Fruit. She was a little taller than when he saw her during the New Year. Chen Longjiang gently patted Chen Peiyue's head and explained to Poplar Fruit, She came here with her mother to accompany me during the holidays. When she heard that you were here, she insisted on coming. You go sit in the back with your sister-in-law, Bei Bei, and Kiki, Chen Longjiang said. He got in the front passenger seat of Poplar Fruit's car, and the group of cars drove to Xiong Village in a mighty manner. Chapter 1023. During the New Year, Fang Beibei had met Chen Peiyue. She was not on guard against Chen Peiyue, mainly because Poplar Fruit was much older than Chen Peiyue. Moreover, Chen Peiyue no longer regarded Poplar Fruit as someone she admired. At most, she worshipped him like a fan. Kiki, on the other hand, liked this beautiful young lady very much. She chatted with her in the car. Fang Beibei also covered her mouth and laughed, interrupting from time to time. Poplar Fruit and Chen Longjiang were very familiar with each other, so they did not keep silent in the car. Chen Longjiang opened up Poplar Fruit's chatterbox and asked about the progress of Poplar Fruit's other businesses other than distance education. Chen Longjiang was like an elder to Poplar Fruit. Since the day Poplar Fruit saved Chen Peiyue, Chen Longjiang had been concerned about him and his family. Now, Poplar Fruit naturally told him everything he knew. Well done. Qianlongjiang affirmed Poplar Fruit's achievements. He said with a smile, "There's less news about you on the internet now. It's not as crazy as it was at the end of last year. This is a good thing. Only when a person is washed clean can he concentrate on doing things. Only when he concentrates on doing things can he achieve the height that he wants." Poplar Fruit agreed with Qianlongjiang's words. However, he felt that it was very strange that Qianlongjiang also read news about him on the internet. He didn't read it. As soon as Poplar Fruit's words came out, Chun Peiwei, who was behind them, protested in a soft voice. "I read it and told him." The girl blushed and was too embarrassed to continue. Poplar Fruit and Qianlongjiang looked at each other and smiled. He asked, "Uncle Chun, why are you willing to bring Peiwei to the mountain?" "To tell you the truth, the conditions on this mountain are very harsh." According to this time, Qianlongjiang and the others were destined to stay in Xiong village for a night. Now that it was summer, there were a lot of mosquitoes. Poplar Fruit was a little worried that Peiwei, the delicate little princess, would not be able to take it. "Don't you have a family to feed too?" Qianlongjiang glanced at Poplar Fruit and said calmly, "It's okay. It's normal for young people to suffer more. If it weren't for the fact that she hasn't gone to college yet, I would have wanted her to join your team and do some charity work to change her weak character." "I can persevere," Chun Peiwei whispered. She bit her lower lip and made up her mind not to embarrass herself in front of her idol. As they spoke, they soon arrived at the foot of the mountain in Xiong village. The villagers who had received the notice had already sent people down to welcome them. However, because there were many people this time, they still had to carry their own luggage. Fortunately, it's summer now. The sky is still bright at 5 p.m. "Let's go up the mountain." Yang Gua hugged Xiong Jisher and exchanged a few words with him. He then waved his hand to greet the team. Xiong Jisher and other young and strong men helped the two girls and a few thin boys in the team carry some luggage. The others carried their own luggage up the mountain. The two people in the front led the way, while Xiong Jisher and Poplar Fruit brought up the rear. However, after half an hour, before the students who were carrying their luggage began to complain, several officials who were used to living like princes could not stand it anymore. Qianlongjiang, who was supporting his daughter, was sweating like soybeans on his forehead. The county leader was even more unbearable. He had reached a point where he needed Meng Ping's help. "Take a break?" "Huff, huff, let's take a break." The county leader panted and said weakly. In the past, it was his subordinates who did this kind of dirty work. He had been an official for so many years. How many times had he suffered like this? "You can't stop," Qianlongjiang gasped and said. "If you stop, the whole team will have to stop with you. Then, we won't be able to go up the mountain until dark." Qianlongjiang had asked Xiong Jisher, who was walking with Poplar Fruit, and he knew that if they did not stop, they could still make it up the mountain before dark. It was too dangerous to go up the mountain after dark. After all, there was a suspension bridge hanging in the air behind them. If they made a mistake, they would fall to their deaths. Even the nimble locals did not want to go over in the dark. Helpless, the county leader, who was so tired, could only force himself to continue walking. In fact, the students in the team were not much better off. Carrying their luggage was also more exhausting. Luckily, Poplar Fruit had told them before they came, and he had taken them through physical training for more than a week. That was why they were able to hold on. However, after another 15 minutes, the county leader could not take it anymore. Not only did he make Meng Ping dizzy, but he also sat on the tree root next to him, unable to move. "There are mosquitoes." Chun Peiwei's tiredness was one thing. She was wearing underwear today, and half of her white and tender calf was the primary target of the mosquitoes in the forest. Just now, she had screamed and killed a mosquito. She had even been frightened by the dead mosquito. There are a few big bumps. After calming down, Chun Peiwei asked Fong Beibei to pull up her pants. After seeing the bumps, she said with grievance, "What's wrong with these officials and princesses?" Poplar Fruit sighed in his heart. "They are really hard to please." Fong Beibei was better. She had been to Xiong village once, and this time, Poplar Fruit was well prepared. Her leggings and other protective measures were done very well. "Come, I will apply some toilet water for you. Later, not only will there be no mosquitoes, you won't itch anymore. Fong Bei comforted Chun Peiyue as she took out some toilet water from her bag and applied it on her. The large group stopped, and everyone rested on the spot. But this was not good. Xiong Jisher looked at the sky and looked at Poplar Fruit with some worry. Poplar Fruit put down Kiki, who was in his arms, and touched her head and said, "Kiki, for the rest of the road, you hold Mother's hand and walk slowly. Okay?" "Okay," Kiki obediently answered. Poplar Fruit divided his luggage equally among the young men of Xiong Village, so that they could take a little more. "Come, I will carry you. Everyone else walk by themselves. Don't stop. Quickly go up the mountain," Poplar Fruit shouted. He walked over and carried the tired county magistrate on his back, so that he could take one more piece of luggage. "Poplar Fruit, can you do it?" Qianlong Jiang asked with some worry. Normal people would be tired walking up here, but Poplar Fruit still had to carry an adult weighing more than 170 pounds. Wasn't this too difficult? In fact, it was okay. Poplar Fruit was full of physical strength, and he was very strong. He smiled and said calmly, "It's okay, let's go." Everyone seemed to have experienced 81 difficulties. Finally, they staggered up the mountain before dark and arrived at the village gate that Poplar Fruit had not seen for a long time. The others were anxiously looking forward to arriving at the village gate as soon as possible. Chapter 10:24. When the torch leading the way appeared in their line of sight, Poplar Fruit heard a group of children cheering excitedly. "He's here, he's here!" I heard Brother Xiao Feng's voice. Kiki was originally a little tired, but after hearing the cheers, her eyes immediately lit up. She broke free from Fong Beibei's hand and ran a few steps forward to the front of the group. "It's Kiki. Kiki is here too." "What do you mean Kiki is here too?" Kiki said she would come back from the start. The front had turned into a mess, and a few of Chi-Chi's friends who used to play very well with her ran out to hold her hand. They were screaming and jumping, and they were very happy. "Ha ha ha!" Kiki also laughed loudly. This group of children was still as lively and cute as before. Poplar Fruit's lips curled up slightly. He had noticed some changes. The children were now speaking standard Mandarin, even better than the officials in the city who spoke with a heavy accent. It was not like before when they spoke Miao, which made people confused. Not to mention these children, even Xiong Jisher, who usually went to the school to listen and shamelessly, could speak a few words of English. There was not much left to walk. The county magistrate who had recovered could finally walk on his own. Poplar Fruit's back was soaked. It was not his sweat, but the other party's, "Master, I'm back." A year had passed, but Xiong Kahu's body was still healthy. When Poplar Fruit went up to give him a disciple's salute, the two of them exchanged a few moves. "You didn't fall behind in your martial arts." Xiong Kahu nodded in satisfaction. He did not even look at Qianlong Jiang and the county magistrate, who were obviously important figures. He only nodded at Meng Ping and went back to his own residence with his hands behind his back. "Who was that?" Qianlong Jiang did not care. He only asked curiously. "My master is also the head of Xiong Village. His name is Xiong Kahu. Mayor Chun, my master's personality is like this. Please don't mind him," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Xiong Kahu?" "The legendary hero of the Xiong clan." Qianlong Jiang had done his homework before coming here. He knew that the Xiong village had hidden such a hero who was respected and respected everywhere. Instead of talking about Xiong Kahu, Qianlong Jiang looked at the children who were playing together with great interest. He said to Poplar Fruit, "If I hadn't suddenly come up the mountain this time, I would have believed that these children were all hired by you. To be honest, in Liang, I haven't seen many Miao primary school students who can speak Mandarin so fluently. Hee, it's mainly because the teachers are very patient." Poplar Fruit recalled the complaints of Lin Xingshan and the others at the beginning. It took them a long time to correct the pronunciation of these children's Mandarin. There was even a period of time when they had to wake up early to read the text with them. Among the university teachers who came, a few of them had taught these children before. They were quickly discovered by the children in the crowd. The children shouted, Teacher Dapeng, Teacher Shuei. They also hugged and welcomed them. These children are all rich in spirit. Chen Longjiang looked for a long time and suddenly sighed with emotion. Poplar Fruit understood. Fong Bei was a little puzzled. She asked, "Uncle Chen, what do you mean?" Chen Longjiang smiled and looked at Poplar Fruit, letting him explain. Poplar Fruit held Fong Bei's hand and looked at the children in a daze. He said, "Look, although they are still in rags, their faces are full of spirit, and their eyes are focused and strong." Fong Bei nodded, not fully understanding. Her understanding was not as deep as Poplar Fruit's, because Poplar Fruit had seen the spirit of the children in Xiong Village at the beginning. If a person's spirit is rich, how far will material wealth be? Chen Longjiang said something that seemed to be very philosophical. Yes, but it was of no use. Chun Pei stood behind her father and looked timidly at the group of children who were like monkeys making a scene in heaven. She liked to be clean and clean. Although she liked to play, she didn't like such a lively scene. Uncle Poplar Fruit and Teacher Bei are here. Poplar Fruit and the others were discovered. A group of children rushed over, and Chun Pei took 2 steps back in fear. "What are you afraid of?" Chen Longjiang scolded with a smile. He pulled his daughter back and said to her, "They are all simple children. What's there to be afraid of? Go and play with them." At this time, Poplar Fruit and Fong Bei had been surrounded by children. Poplar Fruit was holding a first-grade child in each hand, and there was a child on his lap who wanted to climb up. "This is Kiki's papa and Mama Ma. Don't bully Kiki's papa and Mama Ma." When Chi-Chi saw this, she rushed over with a group of lackeys behind her. Then, the 2 groups of people ran off to play somewhere else in the blink of an eye. "They're so noisy." Xiong Jiwu limped out and greeted everyone with a smile. "You've all worked hard to come here. Come and have a meal. Fellow countrymen, don't make too much trouble. Let's have a simple meal," Chen Longjiang said with a smile. In fact, everyone was hungry, especially the county leader. When he heard that there was food, he couldn't help but lick his lips. "No trouble, it's just a simple meal. There are not many good things on the mountain to entertain everyone. Don't worry about it." Xiong Jiwu rubbed his hands and smiled embarrassedly. It was really a simple meal. The county leader was disappointed. It was all porridge with small fish stewed with pickles. A plate of stir-fried pork belly was the only meat dish for more than a dozen people. Now our life has improved a little because the relief funds from the county are in place. Poplar Fruit explained to Chen Longjiang, "Don't look at these dishes. When I came here before, there was no meat to eat. It will get better in the future." Chen Longjiang nodded and smiled. He greeted a child who was watching nearby and asked him what his name was, whether he had eaten, and wanted to give him a piece of meat. Unexpectedly, the child waved his hand with a smile and said, "We are full. This is for the guests. I don't want it." Although the conditions were difficult, everyone had climbed the mountain for 1.5 hours. They were so hungry that their stomachs were sticking to their backs. They didn't care about anything else and quickly went to eat. After the meal, the children and the university teachers brought by Poplar Fruit gathered in the school. There was no class, and it was purely an emotional exchange. Chen Longjiang also followed there, looking at the children in a daze. From time to time, he also asked Poplar Fruit some basic information. What was remote teaching like? Chen Longjiang had a general understanding of this problem, but he still needed to know more about the operation mode and the overall effect of remote teaching. This would be further demonstrated by Poplar Fruit tomorrow. Chapter 1025. You're back. The door that had been closed for half a month reopened. Poplar Fruit smiled and said to Fong Bei and Kiki, "Don't come in yet. I'll open the window and get some fresh air." In the past July, Poplar Fruit and a group of university volunteers had spent their sweat and time in the mountains of Liang City in Guishan Province. Among them, Poplar Fruit had the hardest time. He had to abandon his wife and children and follow Meng Ping to all the poor mountainous areas in the city. Even Meng Ping couldn't keep up with Poplar Fruit's pace. Other government officials continued to accompany him. Although it was a bit hard in the past half a month, and Fong Beibei and Kiki were rarely together, the results they achieved were delightful. From Poplar Fruit's field research, the situation in the other poor mountainous areas of Liang City was generally better than that in Lidong County. At least in terms of transportation, it was much more convenient. There was no need for manpower to carry equipment up the mountain. The ambitious Chun Longjiang also wanted to popularize remote teaching in Liang City as soon as possible. Not only did he promote Meng Ping, who had not been in the position of director for a year, to the city's education bureau to help him take charge of this matter, but he also applied to the province to get a special fund support. Of course, because the entire Liang City was too big, even if the special fund was as high as 100 million yuan, it couldn't buy enough equipment. Therefore, the remaining half was donated by Poplar Fruit's charity fund. In the past 6 months, Poplar Fruit's charity fund had received donations from the outside world. Most of them were his fans, and some of them were university students who were enthusiastic about public welfare. However, it added up to less than 1 million yuan. The reason why Poplar Fruit could afford this expenditure of more than 50 million yuan was because Poplar Fruit paid for it himself. The remuneration he earned from Cine Road in the past 6 months was basically invested in the charity fund, but it was estimated that after it was transferred to buy equipment later, the fund account would be stretched again. Poplar Fruit had to continue to work hard to earn money. Currently, he was only helping the children of one city, and it was already too much for him to bear. In the future, there would be many more children who would need his help. Speaking of which, Chen Longjiang found it hard to say, but there was no other way. Guishan province was relatively poor and backward. There were too many places that needed money. Even he could only get a special fund of 100 million through lobbying. Even this special fund of 100 million was not easy to come by. Chen Longjiang even made a military order for this. It would be fine if he succeeded, but if he failed, Chen Longjiang would become a sinner who squandered the money of the people. As mentioned earlier, the remaining half was donated by Poplar Fruit's charity fund. The other half would be donated by the Yangcheng city government. After learning about Chen Longjiang's predicament, Poplar Fruit contacted Zheng Mingsheng, the leader of Guangdong province. Naturally, Zheng Mingsheng would not do it himself, but he also played the role of a bridge. After discussing with the leader of Guishan province, they decided to let Guangdong province's provincial capital, Yangcheng City, and Guishan province's poorest city, Liang City, shake hands and become brother cities. This seemed to be the first of its kind in the country. Poplar Fruit did not know much about this. However, he knew that with this mutual aid relationship, remote teaching would receive policy support, such as more university students joining, more excellent teachers training and guidance, and so on. Poplar Fruit did not know that while he was still running around in the mountains, the provincial television stations of Guishan province and Guangdong province had broadcasted this matter. Wang Yuba, who was staying at school, was even lucky enough to be on TV. Poplar Fruit opened the curtains and windows in the house to drive away the stuffy air. Only then did he let Fong Beibei and the others come back. Kiki likes the sofa at home so much. Kiki ran in, her shoes flying everywhere. She climbed onto the soft sofa and rolled around comfortably. Although she had many friends to play with on the mountain, the place she lived in was not as comfortable as home. "Baby, where did you keep the flag that Master gave me?" Poplar Fruit bent down to pick up Kiki's shoes and asked with a smile, "I want to hang it up in the gym." It was a replica of the sex flag. Although it did not mean anything, it had a bit of commemorative value. "I put it in our suitcase. You treasure it so much, of course you have to put it away." Fong Beibei laughed. "You are my treasures. You can lose anything, as long as you and Kiki are not lost." Poplar Fruit teased Fong Beibei. Papa, where's the gold? Where's the gold?" At this time, Kiki, who realized that the gold was missing, jumped down from the sofa in a panic and asked her father with tears in her eyes. Poplar Fruit patted Kiki's little head with a smile and said, "When we went to Xiong village, didn't we already send the gold to Grandma's place? Did you forget?" "Yes." Kiki thought for a while and then breathed a big sigh of relief. However, she began to pester her father and cried, "Papa, Papa, let's go and get the gold, okay? Kiki misses the gold. Kiki, let Dad and Mom rest for 2 days. Fong Bebe pulled Kiki over and persuaded. You see, Dad has been driving for 2 days. It's so tiring. Kiki finally understood her father and did not continue to pester. At noon, Poplar Fruit casually cooked some scallop porridge. Everyone had a simple lunch with pickled vegetables and then went to take a nap. Poplar Fruit did the same. He drove all night and did not sleep, so he slept for 3 hours at noon. In the afternoon, when they were packing up, Poplar Fruit received a phone call and talked for a long time. When he came back, Fong Bebe asked curiously, Uncle, who called? Why do you still speak English? Poplar Fruit shook his head and said with a smile, It's not English, it's French. It's Ardal. He wants to invite me to go to the Bali Fashion Week again. Did you agree? Fong Bebe looked at Poplar Fruit and asked, No, didn't I say that I won't go again? It's good to go once and have an experience. I'm not a professional model. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, In fact, Ardal also knows my idea, but he thinks it's a pity, so he invited me again. Don't tell me you don't want me to go. Fong Bebe stood up and put her arms around Poplar Fruit's neck from behind. She intimately pressed against Poplar Fruit, who was squatting on the ground, and asked sweetly, Of course. Poplar Fruit smiled and rubbed Fong Bebe's head. He said, If I go to Bali for 10 days or half a month, who will drive you to and from school? Fong Bebe hadn't gotten her driver's license yet. Although she used her connections to jump the queue, it still took time to practice driving. Poplar Fruit did not want Fong Bebe to become a road killer among female drivers, who was irresponsible to others and herself. One reason was that he wanted to stay with his girlfriend and daughter and did not want to go everywhere. Another reason was that Poplar Fruit did not want to continue to be in the limelight. At the end of last year, he was besieged by the media and got Fong Bebe into trouble. Poplar Fruit still remembered it in his heart. Chapter 10:26. Poplar Fruit did not go to Bali, but when the Bali Fashion Week was approaching at the end of August, entertainment reporters flocked to him, wanting to know what his plans were. Poplar Fruit, who was annoyed beyond words, finally posted a Weibo to reply to the reporters' questions and fans' expectations. Poplar Fruit will not participate in the Bali Fashion Week this year. After all, he is just a student and a scholar. This choice is purely based on his personal preference. Everyone, please don't make any wild guesses. However, even though Poplar Fruit posted an explanation on Weibo, there were still some media who made wild and even malicious guesses about Poplar Fruit's original intentions. However, Poplar Fruit did not care much. The innocent knew that he was innocent, and the muddy knew that he was muddy. No matter what the rumors were, he would not move. Poplar Fruit spent the whole of August very peacefully. In the morning, he sent Fong Bebe back to school, sent Kiki to play with her friends, and picked them up in the evening. During this period of time, Yangui usually read books in the library or found a cafe to do translation. It was monotonous, but it could be said that she had a lot of fun. If Fong Bebe came back early in the evening, Poplar Fruit would take the two girls to the high-end swimming pool in the community to learn how to swim. Chi-Chi was a quick learner. She was able to swim in the water without her father's guidance after only 2 trips. In this aspect, Chi-Chi was really a little magical. Although she was nervously waving her claws and baring her fangs during her first time in the water, she could still float on the surface of the water by herself if Yangui didn't support her. Poplar Fruit was a child who lived by the sea. Needless to say, Fong Bebe also knew how to swim. Let me teach. Fong Bebe reproachfully pushed Poplar Fruit away. She felt that although Poplar Fruit was a good swimmer, he was born in the wild after all. Other than dog paddling, he could only swing his arms vigorously. He could not swim gracefully. Looking at the two girls he loved the most swimming in the pool like 2 beautiful fish, Poplar Fruit's heart was overflowing with happiness. Originally, there was a swimming pool in the school. However, the school swimming pool was crowded and the water quality was relatively poor. Poplar Fruit was worried that Kiki's delicate skin could not take it, so he spent money to rent a high-end swimming pool in the community. Anyway, The swimming pool was not very expensive. In addition to swimming, Poplar Fruit also took the time to go to the army to play with his buddies in the Special Forces. This summer, the Special Forces actually recruited a master of Wing Chun from a company below them during the recruitment. Wing Chun was the Chinese traditional martial arts that Bruce Lee's master, Yi Wan, made famous all over the world. Although Poplar Fruit had seen a lot of videos on TV and the internet, but Poplar Fruit had never met a person who had really learned the essence of Wing Chun. Bruce Lee also did not learn the real Wing Chun. Poplar Fruit had heard about it from Xiong Kahu. When Xiong Kahu was young, he had traveled extensively and met a real Wing Chun master in Fujian. Borrowing strength to fight strength, using softness to conquer strength. The most unbearable thing is that in the first 10 seconds, he will chase after you and attack you. His fists and palms are like a storm of pear blossoms. He will beat you until you can't defend yourself. It was said that those who were good could launch 15 attacks in a second. Punches, palms, elbows, and knees all counted as one attack. And those who had mastered the essence of it could launch over 100 attacks in the first 10 seconds, making it impossible for anyone to block them. Poplar Fruit was also very interested in this kind of fast Wing Chun. He wanted to know if his Tai Chi, Xingyi Quan, and other Kung Fu could withstand the first 10 seconds of Wing Chun. The new Wing Chun master was called Liang Bin. Although he was a newcomer, he had set a new height for the Special Forces. Even Meng Sanhua was defeated by him. This aroused Poplar Fruit's interest. After receiving the invitation, Poplar Fruit found a chance to go to the barracks within a few days. After the real fight, Liang Bin's Kung Fu was really good. Not only were his moves solid, but he had also learned the True Heart Sutra of Wing Chun. When Poplar Fruit fought with him, it was rare for him to experience the feeling of meeting a worthy opponent. He did not have to be cautious like when he fought with Meng Sanhua. When he used all his strength, Liang Bin could barely support him. Indeed, it was barely enough. In the few seconds when Liang Bin exerted his most ferocious strength, Yang Guo's mutated eyes were still able to break down the afterimages of his attacks and easily block them. When Poplar Fruit was full and memorized all the moves, Poplar Fruit used his fast Tai Chi to counterattack. Brother Yang is too OP. Liang Bin finally twisted his wrist and said to Meng Sanhua, "I feel like I'm being abused." He hasn't used his full strength yet. You only know now. Meng Sanhua laughed. He's not human. Do you know the Tiger Army in Beijing? Some time ago, he beat up 2 retired old men half to death in less than a minute. Why'd he beat them up? Liang Bin was shocked. The capital's Tiger Legion was the most elite special forces in all of China. Even he couldn't enter. After they retired, they helped the evildoers. Forget it. You don't have to guess the relationship between them. Meng Sanhua patted Liang Bin's head. He had a few more years of experience than Liang Bin, so this was the only thing he could boast about. Liang Bin, come. See if I'm good at it? While Liang Bin was still chatting, Poplar Fruit stood there and pondered for a while. Then he happily called Liang Bin over and performed a round of Wing Chun in front of him. Brother Yang, how did you learn it? Have you learned it before? Liang Bin was so shocked that his jaw almost dropped. Although Poplar Fruit's Wing Chun looked good, it was still the real Wing Chun Kung Fu. And this was when Poplar Fruit was a little rusty and did not use the internal strength of Tai Chi. If Poplar Fruit used real Kung Fu and made some adjustments, the power might not be inferior to Liang Bin's Wing Chun. I just learned it from you. Poplar Fruit's answer destroyed Liang Bin's hope. He was speechless when he realized that Poplar Fruit had been baiting him to make him feel that he could win if he put in more effort, forcing him to use his real Kung Fu and then secretly learn it. No, it should be said that he learned it openly. This was Poplar Fruit's talent. Even Liang Bin could not say anything about it. My grandfather said that I am the strongest and most promising of my generation. Liang Bin looked up at the sky and sighed. It seems that the title of genius should be given to you, Brother Yang. What kind of genius am I in front of you? No, he's not a genius. He's a genius killer. Meng Sanhua slapped the back of Liang Bin's head to wake him up from his depression. He laughed and said, "If you lose confidence, you'll never catch up with Poplar Fruit. The more we meet such opponents, the more motivated we will be. With Meng Sanhua around, Liang Bin would recover quickly and continue to grow. Poplar Fruit, on the other hand, did not have time to be complacent about his newly learned Wing Chun, because a new problem was placed in front of him. Or rather, it was Song Jiwen's problem. Chapter 10:27. Song Jiwen called Poplar Fruit at around 7 o'clock in the evening and asked him to come out and drink with him. This was really unprecedented. Poplar Fruit had always been the one to confide in Song Jiwen when he encountered problems. What had Song Jiwen ever confided in Poplar Fruit? Not to mention whether Song Jiwen would find someone else to talk about these things. He had almost never encountered an emotional problem that could make him drown his sorrows in alcohol. Because in his eyes before, emotions were not a problem at all. Except for that one time with Xiao Yao. "Uncle, when you go, don't drink too much. Be careful," Fong Beibei said worriedly as she sent Poplar Fruit out. "Papa, you're not allowed to drink. After drinking, you'll become smelly." Kiki strongly objected. When she was on the mountain, she smelled the breath of those uncles after drinking, and it almost made Kiki faint. "Don't worry, Papa won't drink." Poplar Fruit smiled and comforted. "The main thing is to talk with him for a while, and then when he's drunk, I'll send him back." After seeing Song Jiwen, he had already started drinking. This guy, a box of beer was placed at his feet, and he had already thrown in 2 empty bottles. In fact, Poplar Fruit did not need to guess to know that it should be about Chun Anlin. At the end of the term, Chun Anlin went back to school to complete the graduation procedures, but that time, it was nearly 2 months, and he only came back last week. Could it be that after Chun Anlin came back, Song Jiwen confessed, and then failed and fell out of love? "I know you're not loyal enough to drink with me," Song Jiwen said as he waved his hand to ask the boss to send a few bottles of drinks. "It's okay. I'll drink by myself." With that, he gulped down half a bottle of beer and then burped loudly. "Hey, don't be in such a hurry to drink it." Poplar Fruit pressed down on his bottle and laughed. "I'm still confused." Song Jiwen stared blankly at the beer bottle for a while, then shook his head and said, "I'm not happy." "What are you unhappy about?" Poplar Fruit smelled the fragrance of the skewers and picked one up to eat slowly. "What do you think?" Song Jiwen asked as he started drinking again. "Unlon?" Poplar Fruit shook his head and asked. Song Jiwen was in a daze. He just drank without saying a word. "Did you fail to confess your love? Or did your confession fail?" Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. "Didn't you say that a man doesn't have to worry about not having a wife? So what if his confession failed?" "Damn it. I didn't even confess, okay?" Song Jiwen glanced at Poplar Fruit and complained. "Then why are you unhappy? Didn't she just come back?" Poplar Fruit asked curiously. Song Jiwen drank a mouthful of wine and said in a muffled voice, "I'm leaving." He threw the empty bottle into the box and picked up another bottle. He then stood up and said, "Help me open the bottle. I need to go to the toilet." "Hey, what do you mean?" Poplar Fruit shouted at him gloomily. When Song Jiwen came back, Poplar Fruit asked the same question again. "What do you mean by leaving? What do you mean? Go home." Song Jiwen continued drinking. "You just came back from home, and you're going back again?" Poplar Fruit asked in surprise. Song Jiwen didn't say a word and just drank. He ate a few skewers like a tornado before slowly chewing. "The boxing school has been transferred out. After a long time," he said with an ugly expression, "I probably won't come back this time." Poplar Fruit was a little surprised. He couldn't accept this fact because Chun Anlin didn't mention it to him before. However, this was also because Poplar Fruit was too careless. When Chun Anlin came back and had a meal with everyone, he didn't notice Chun Anlin's gloomy mood. If the boxing school had been transferred out, then she might really have to leave. One had to know that the martial arts school was something she had slowly built up bit by bit after coming to Yangcheng. How could she be willing to transfer the boxing school? Poplar Fruit asked in disbelief. "She did so well. It's because she's doing so well that her family wants her to go back and manage the family's Tai Chi dojo after she graduates." Song Jiwen smiled bitterly. He shook his head and downed half a bottle of wine. Poplar Fruit was silent for a while and asked, "Since you like her, why didn't you mention it to her? Maybe if you tell her, she'll stay for you." Song Jiwon shook his head and didn't say anything. He just kept drinking and ate when he was a little full. "Old boy, you don't understand." Song Jiwon burped and said with drunken eyes, "Let me tell you, it's impossible for us to be together. Drink less." Poplar Fruit began to control Song Jiwon's drinking speed, not letting him drink in big gulps. First of all, she's a person with great ambition. She wholeheartedly wants to achieve great things and carry forward the martial spirit of Tai Chi. Song Jiwon chuckled and said, "It's true that we like her, but we don't have the qualifications to stop her from achieving her dreams, right?" Poplar Fruit was silent. He didn't know how to answer this question. Perhaps it was possible to achieve her dreams in Yangcheng, but she also knew that Chunamlin's foundation was in the north, in Jin City. "Secondly, it's because of myself." Song Jiwon continued to drink and said, "You also know that my mother has always wanted me to find a girl from Cantonese province, and it's best if she's a local. What she thinks isn't important. What's important is what you think." Poplar Fruit couldn't help but say, "Yes, what's important is what I think. I'm also very hesitant." Song Jiwon patted the table and said, "Tell me, if I marry her and we still quarrel like now, how are we going to live?" "There are too many things that don't agree with her. How can it be so fast? You guys should try to date first. If it doesn't work out, you can talk about marriage after you succeed." Poplar Fruit said, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. "Dating without the purpose of marriage is just acting like a hooligan." Song Jiwon, under the influence of alcohol, suddenly stood up and shouted, attracting the attention of all the diners in the food stall. Poplar Fruit bitterly smiled and pulled him down. Poplar Fruit really didn't know how to ridicule this guy. This sentence wasn't bad, but no matter who said it, it couldn't have come from the mouth of a playboy like you. Who would believe it? However, thinking about Song Jiwon's change last year, Poplar Fruit sighed and patted his shoulder, comforting him. This sentence doesn't necessarily mean that. As long as you don't act like a hooligan to the girl, it's fine to date properly, right? It's too late to say anything. Song Jiwon waved his hand and pushed Poplar Fruit away. He opened another bottle of wine and continued to drink. Chapter 1028. It was not easy to get drunk from beer. During this period, Song Jiwon went to the toilet many times, but he was not drunk yet. However, the effects of the alcohol had already kicked in, and he began to ramble and speak incoherently. Moreover, there was a tendency to transform into an emotional philosopher. "Laogua, let me tell you, in a person's life, gold and jade are easy to obtain, but a good match is hard to come by." Song Jiwon held a skewer in his hand and looked at it carefully. Then, he started to chuckle. Even though he was laughing, Poplar Fruit didn't like it. "Others like you, but you're so reserved that you chase them away. The person you like quarrels with you every day and doesn't even care about you." Song Jiwon's expression was calm, as if he was talking about someone else. If it wasn't for the Poplar Fruit taking away his bottle, he would have continued drinking. Poplar Fruit frowned and said, "You didn't confess. How do you know she doesn't miss you? Or does she have feelings for you?" "Did I say that?" Song Jiwon burped and stuttered. "I told her that I didn't want to go back and wanted to stay in Yangcheng." Guess what she said? Poplar Fruit didn't want to guess. He knew that Chun Amlin must have said something to agitate Song Jiwon. Song Jiwon didn't need Poplar Fruit to continue the conversation since he only needed someone to talk to. He smiled wryly and said, "Why did Little Pepper stay in Yangcheng?" To her, Yangcheng is like an inn. She comes, takes a rest, and leaves. Her home is in the north. She is a wolf from the north. This guy suddenly jumped up, opened his arms, and rushed to the riverside to sing. She was supposed to sing, but as she sang, it became wolf in sheep's clothing. "I'm sure that I'll be by your side for the rest of my life. I'll follow you wherever you go with a fiery heart. I'm sure that you're the lamb in my heart. You're my angel. You're my dream. You make me crazy and crazy." The howls of love for you are still echoing in the valley. With his somewhat hoarse voice, he actually sang this song heartbreakingly. His singing made the listeners' hearts ache, and they even ignored his already messed up lyrics. Poplar Fruit shook his head. He took out his wallet and threw a few red notes on the table. He then picked up a bottle of wine and walked over. Poplar Fruit comfortingly patted Song Jiwin's shoulder and said, "Drink it, and then you'll feel better after drinking it." He didn't know what to do with this brother of his, nor did he know how to persuade him. Moreover, wasn't the best way for a man to get drunk? Song Jiwin picked up the bottle and poured it into his mouth, but nothing came out. When he opened his hazy eyes, he realized that there was no cap. "Help me open it." Song Jiwin shamelessly stuffed the beer bottle back into Poplar Fruit's hands. He lowered his head and looked at Poplar Fruit's hand in a trance. He directly lifted the bottle cap with his thumb. "Damn, how are you so good?" Song Jiwin asked in surprise. In fact, Poplar Fruit couldn't do it in the past. Now, it was mainly because of the strength in his hands that he could do it so easily. He smiled and handed the open beer to Song Jiwin and said, drink it and go back." According to Poplar Fruit's understanding of Song Jiwin, this guy was almost drunk. Moreover, the after effects were gradually coming up. After drinking this bottle, he could easily send him back to sleep. "After drinking this bottle of wine, my troubles are gone," Song Jiwin muttered as he stared at the beer bottle in a daze. Suddenly, he raised his head and gulped it down. In order to prevent the situation from happening again, Poplar Fruit took Song Jiwin back to the food stall to use the restroom, and then drove him back. This time, Song Jiwin really drank too much. As soon as he got in the car, he fell unconscious on his back. Poplar Fruit reached out to help him fasten his seatbelt. Poplar Fruit sent him home in silence. After all, he had lived here before. Poplar Fruit easily helped Song Jiwin upstairs. Just as he was looking for the key to open the door opposite opened. Chun Anlin stood there in his long pajamas. He frowned at Poplar Fruit and the others. Poplar Fruit looked at him. His eyes were a little flustered, as if he had done something bad. "Why do you always drink so much?" Chun Anlin sighed and went to open the door for them. "No, nothing. He just can't think straight about work." Poplar Fruit lied. He quickly helped Song Jiwin in and threw him on the sofa. "Drinking is bad for the body. Brother Yang, you should persuade him. Last time he drank so much that he vomited in the middle of the night." Chun Anlin went to the coffee table, boiled some water, and poured some tea leaves into the teapot. "I saw that he wanted to drink so much, so I let him drink to his heart's content." Poplar Fruit scratched his head embarrassedly and said with a smile, "Actually, he doesn't drink often now. It's okay to get drunk occasionally, right?" "How is it occasionally? Doesn't he often socialize?" "Sometimes he drinks with the leaders, sometimes he drinks with you guys." Chun Anlin shook his head, looked at Poplar Fruit, and said, "Brother Yang, you practice martial arts. You should know how harmful drinking is to the body. In the future, you should persuade him, right? Then why don't you talk to him? You usually live across from him." Poplar Fruit couldn't help but ask sarcastically. Chun Anlin's eyes drifted. He turned to look at the unboiled water and said, "What's the use of me telling him? Tell him that it's just another fight. I'm going to leave. I don't want to continue arguing with him." The scene suddenly became cold. Poplar Fruit didn't know what to say. He watched Chun Anlin boil the water and began to make a pot of strong tea. "Anlin, Mosquito, he actually has feelings for you, right?" Poplar Fruit hesitated for a long time before he said. Although Song Jiwin was already confused, Poplar Fruit still wanted to fight for him. Chun Anlin turned his head and looked at Song Jiwin, who was smirking in his drunken dream. Her mood today was also a little low, which was somewhat different from her usual energetic appearance. "Brother Yang, some things can't be forced," Chun Anlin finally said to Poplar Fruit faintly. Yanghua actually did not know that the two of them were quarreling. Song Jiwin had even said a few harsh words to Chun Anlin in the past. He had told Chun Anlin quite straightforwardly that their family was against girls from other provinces. Actually, it was the same. How warm was Lu Suqin to Chun Anlin back then? Later, she gradually calmed down and just treated Song Jiwin as an ordinary friend. Besides, just like Song Jiwin's understanding of Chun Anlin really couldn't let go of her family in Jincheng. She had a big ambition, which was to develop the family's Tai Chi dojo. She couldn't let the Korean Taekwondo dojo be so arrogant. Moreover, Chun Anlin wasn't uncertain about it. She more or less knew about Song Jiwin's previous experience of wandering in love from Song Jiwin. It was Song Jiwin who bragged about it. This was originally the image of a playboy that Chun Anlin despised since she was a child. What Song Jiwin had shown her was also limited to a very faint impression that could be broken with a single blow. So why should she continue to be entangled with him? Poplar Fruit sighed. He also knew that a forcibly picked melon wouldn't be sweet, so he simply didn't say much. Brother Yang, you go back first. Bei must be anxiously waiting for you at home. I'll be fine here. Chun Anlin finally sent Poplar Fruit away. She was left standing on the balcony, under the bleak moonlight, blowing the night wind, listening to Song Jiwin's snoring in the room like a pig, confused and helpless. That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.